Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next 3 hours. Let me tell you what's coming up on the programme. At midnight, it is your hour. It's yours, all yours, to give me a call, and we'll have a chat. And we're talking about... I know that Kevin looked at it, a couple of the shows have looked at this, but really just to give you a chance to talk back about this topic, and that is Gen Z, and what they really think about Britain. And it got me thinking that a lot of what they're saying, I can kind of understand that they feel disillusioned with the place. They don't think it's as safe or as good for them as it was for, say, our age group, right? Where we did have the hope of buying a property, where we did have the hope of being anything we wanted to be, although it often didn't materialise. We still had that one thing that is incredibly important, and that is hope. And a lot of young people of that generation do not feel any hope at all about getting what they need from the country that they were born in. So I really want to talk to you about that and ask you, are you proud to be British? Because as one of the stories that's come out of this is talking about the fact that a lot of these Gen Zs will say that they don't like to admit they're British when they're overseas. And they will pretend to be from any other country rather than Britain because they're not proud to be British. So I want to know if you're proud to be British, and if you are proud to be British, what are you proud of? And if you are not proud to be British, is that something new? Is that something that's happened over the last few years? Is that happened because of certain things that have gone on in your life? Or is this something that you've always felt, that you don't actually feel proud to be British, that you're not proud to say that you're British? So give me a call. There's lots of questions around this survey that I want to ask you, but we'll kick off with that one because I think it's the most direct. I think it's the most simple, isn't it? Are you proud to be British? Are you proud of the way this country is at the moment? And if you're not proud of the way it is, what is it that you're not proud of? So give me a call. This is your chance to talk back. And as you know, all opinions are valid and valued on this programme. So do give me a call. 0344 499 1000. And you can text me as well. Your message to put the word talk and then your message to 87222. So that is coming up at midnight. Before then, coming in to have a look at Tuesday's papers for us is the fabulous Phil Dave. He will be in the studio to go through those front pages. Also, we've got Josh Rom, who's coming in with some fantastic interviews for us, a couple of exclusives for us about the film September 5, which I think looks absolutely brilliant. Also, Alex Three Lions Irons will be talking us through the weekend's sport and that upset for Liverpool. But first, those tariffs. We've heard a lot about these tariffs. And what I think has been interesting for me today is to look at the markets, because the idea of a global trade war would normally send the markets into a bit of a free fall, but they haven't. They really haven't. And reading through some of the financial papers, a lot of the traders are saying we don't believe, already they're seeing him cry wolf, that they don't believe that this is the tariff, but a tactic for him to get other things that he wants. He said on the plane on the way over to the Super Bowl that he was going to do 25% tariffs on everybody. And is that reasonable? Is that even what he wants to do? I mean, Britain, for example, the kind of steel that we produce is world leading. Supplying the US with high quality products for defence, aerospace, stainless and other critical sectors, materials that simply cannot be replicated elsewhere. So he can't get the steel that we send him from anybody else, because I don't know anything about steel, but I suspect there are different grades of it. China, on the other hand, has got a glut of aluminium, and in fact Biden stepped in and tried to protect America from this glut of very cheap aluminium. So now with Trump adding a tariff to China, does this benefit China? Who does this benefit? Which country is going to do the best out of this? And I suggest it probably will be China. And is that part of the plan? See, we don't know. We don't know with Donald Trump what it is he's trying to get, what it is he's trying to do, whether he actually means these tariffs will be a thing. And the tariff on Canada, where he listed off these things that he'd wanted, and half of it had already been agreed with Biden anyway. It had been agreed before the election. So is he really getting what he wants out of this, or does he just feel like he's getting what he wants out of this? So lots to talk about. Not only how is that going to affect us? Look, the steel, UK Steel fears a devastating blow from Trump's tariffs, and we've yet to hear the details. We may be exempt, although it didn't sound like we were when Donald Trump was talking on the plane on Air Force One on his way to the Super Bowl. It sounded like everybody was going to get this blanket tariff. So the announcement of that 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports has sparked global reactions, with Europe vowing to respond with counter tariffs. Now, counter tariffs and then more tariffs and counter tariffs is a global trade war. So can we stop it? Does he want that? Does it fit with his plans? Well, listen, let's talk to Teddy Brett now, who's an emeritus professor for international development at the LSE, the London School of Economics. Teddy, a very good evening to you. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
Let's have a look at the beginning salvos of what could be a trade war. It is a global trade war. It is very difficult, isn't it, to understand really what Donald Trump is trying to achieve by this. If it's America first, then America needs.
I'm sorry to be laughing, but you used the word plan in your introduction, and what seems, I mean, when we listen to Donald Trump, I don't think he has a plan. He simply has things that come up that he thinks are important, that he has to deal with, and he does what he thinks he should do to deal with them in a one-off manner, without considering the consequences, without being involved in any of the long-term discussions, issues, complex processes, what would be good for the US, what would be good for Europe, what would be good for the world. And that's why we're in a situation that is so disruptive, because the leader of the most powerful, or certainly most influential economy in the world seems to simply have one objective, which is to do something to deal with anything that he thinks other people are doing that harms the United States. And this trade war and these steel things and so on are all part of that package. But the big problem, and I laughed and shouldn't have laughed, but the big problem is that this is important for everybody. This
and not least for America. They wouldn't be buying this steel in if they didn't need it for their manufacturing processes, surely.
Well, of course they need the steel. There is huge overproduction of steel in the world economy. So what's at issue is not, is there enough steel for everybody to have steel? The issue is who can supply it at the most competitive price. And the critical problem for Trump is that the American steel industry is hugely uncompetitive. China can produce steel much better than the US. And of course, historically, in a situation where you did that, you adopted protective tariffs on the assumption that that would force people to invest in your economy, or in this case, hopefully make it possible for their profit-losing companies to make profits. But of course, that has a cost. And the cost is that steel is a major input into virtually every manufactured product, steel and aluminium. You know, all the saucepans I use on my cooker are made of aluminium. And of course, protectionism is very good for producers and very bad for consumers. And of course, that's going to raise the price of steel for steel products, steel and aluminium products for everybody in America, including American manufacturers that use it as part of their manufacturing. So even if this does help a few American steel producers, it's going to have devastating effects on huge numbers of American companies that are going to be less able to export and less able to compete than they were before.
It's looking, I'm trying to figure out, because a blanket tariff on everybody, I don't think has ever worked, right? To that, because you're not figuring out the nuances of what you need. I mean, I was just relating there that the UK steel, I don't know anything about steel, but apparently it's world beating. It's very special. It's bigly special, and you know, he will need that particular type of steel for a particular type of job. What is he? I mean, I know it's impossible to say, but what is he trying to achieve? Is he trying to achieve people to come to the table and make deals with him? What is this? Because the markets don't believe him now.
Yeah, well, I mean, the issue about using trade sanctions to get people to land planes full of immigrants in their countries is a sign of the. Sorry, I feel quite strongly about this. I was going to say the imbecility of these policies. You do not raise big issues about trade with your big major trading partners in order to get them to agree to land a plane of immigrants in their main airport. I mean, we're operating at that level. But the problem is, of course, that although he's doing all these crazy things, he's the president of the United States. And he has the power to simply sit down, write something on a piece of paper, sign it, and it gets turned into law. So we do have to think very seriously about the implications of this for the British steel industry and indeed for our whole trading position and trading relationship with the United States.
One of the big, or the two of the big losers in this are Canada and Mexico, who are allies, or we thought, with the United States of America. But you know, he said he'll hold back on other tariffs for Canada, but this will come as a real blow to Canadians and to Canada to have this, because they can't trust him anymore, right? They don't know what's coming next. He might put a tariff on, I don't know, fresh air. We don't know. So, you know, and separate that from the rest of the tariffs. But they've got stuff that he needs. So when do we see a big country like Canada, right, they're being very calm at the moment, say, right, if you're going to stuff us over, we're going to switch the taps off. You're not going to get that crude that you need.
The problem is that, you know, I used to study this. Before the Second World War, everybody adopted protective tariffs. And what the economists called this was beggar thy neighbor policies. So the problem about tariffs is that they definitely reduce the amount of trade, they'd reduce total output. The only thing that one has to think about there is that they hurt some people more than others. So the critical point about the fact that Canada is hugely dependent on steel exports and the American steel industry is very small because it can't compete with Canada at the middle levels or China at the lower levels, it's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt the United States. And it's going to help a few people in the United States, i.e. those steel producers who can sell their goods at a profit with that 25% tariff. The 25% tariff means they make a profit, not a loss. They survive. So that's how the whole trade politics works. And of course, for 100 years, well, sorry, how long is it? 80 years since the war, the whole Bretton Woods Agreement, the whole international trade agreement was predicated around the fact that everybody benefits. Total global production increases with free trade. And compare the world in 2025 with the world in 1945, and you can see the effect of that. But now we have somebody who's disrupting all of that, and who's doing it in what can only be described as an irresponsible way. He doesn't care who he insults. Canada has been his most loyal partner, and yet unilaterally, without giving them any chance to respond in any way, he simply unilaterally imposes this on them, devastates their steel industry if it actually happens.
But we will see retaliation, won't we? And then it just ratchets up.
Well, exactly.
Because if Canada does say, well, look, if you're going to do this to us, you're not going to get our oil to refine, or our gas or electric, whatever it is, then there's something on top of that. And then that's when it turns into something really nasty.
This turns into what economists call a lose-lose situation. Everybody loses. Because cumulatively, I react against you by, doing nasty things to your industry. You react against me because in revenge. And this accumulates and accumulates. And you end up with what we ended up with at the end of the 1930s, with a world in which trade becomes a basis for violent antagonism. And, we're only talking here about things that are happening in the advanced world. Us living here in huge comfort, even if all this gets very bad, we are going to be better off than the people who are in Gaza or the Sudan or any of these other places. Trump has actually cut off aid unilaterally to the rest of the world. A huge proportion of American aid actually goes to companies in the United States. So because he thinks that this aid is being misused by people somewhere in Sudan or something, or because people have this prejudice against aid, he cuts it off, and he doesn't realize that God knows how many millions of dollars are spent paying American farmers for food that is exported as aid to the rest of the world. So problem with all of us is that we're dealing with somebody who's not operating rationally.
But he did say this is what he was going to do, of course. I mean, America first. But I just wonder as well, the EU now are saying that they are going to come up with counter tariffs for Donald Trump. I suppose, as Britain, we are somewhat isolated from what might happen between the two of them. But how will it affect us?
Quite right. He hasn't taken on Europe yet, and if he treats Europe in the way that he's treated Canada and Mexico, because of course, once you've got somebody like that hitting you over the head with a baseball bat, you can't just sit and take it. You have to retaliate, and you're forced into this lose-lose confrontational situation. Then the issue is, who's the stronger? Who can do the more damage? And in a way, because at the end of the day, the reason why Trump can do this is because 51% of the American population voted for him. And they were told that he's going to deliver all these great things that he's going to deliver. And it's already very clear that a lot of these things are going to be counterproductive when all, those companies start losing jobs because their goods are no longer competitive internationally.
Well, the farmers are already feeling the impact. And I just want to say, 51% of those who voted voted for Trump. It's not
Yeah.
51% of the country.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah.
sure.
No,
Okay.
I just wanted to make that, because a lot of people go, well, they overwhelmingly voted for him. I go, oh, actually,
I spent 3 months watching those poll days, and I have to say, two of the worst days of my life over the last 10 years was 2016 and 2024 American election result days, because, they've elected somebody who, when they evaluated American presidents, most of the evaluations registered Trump's performance over those 4 years as the worst American president in American history. So I have a problem with the American electorate, not the whole American electorate, because some of my best and most intelligent friends are Americans, but they've made a huge mistake. They've been conned into it. And the problem is he's got 3.5 years.
I know, and we can't get, there's no way of calling an election in the middle of that either.
I don't know how much time I've got, but this is running on. But it does seem to me that, obviously, I just was listening to Peter Mandelson, who's being interviewed as British ambassador, who was saying much what I was saying about Trump 5 or 6 years ago, but has had to retract everything he said.
Yeah, I think we can safely say, Teddy, follow the money. What a joy to talk to you, Teddy.
Yeah,
honestly, I've really enjoyed it. Come back, will you, another time? I'd love that. Teddy Brett there, Emeritus Professor for International Development at the London School of Economics. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight, which is your chance to talk back, to have your say, I want to talk to you about this survey that's been done by the Times newspaper. Just down the hallway, really. 20 years ago, the Times published a groundbreaking survey of young people in Britain. Now, its subjects were the first millennials to come of age, and they did so amid New Labour, the end of the Cold War, and the dawn of the internet. So very different times. There was hope in the air under New Labour, wasn't there? Well, these people then in their 20s were optimistic about the future, proud to be British, etc. Now, it is completely different. Gen Z, which we spend quite a lot of time talking about because they are a bit gobby. We talk about Gen Z. By and large, they think Britain is a racist country. When asked, 48% said that they thought the nation was racist, with 36% who do not, suggesting that the progress of the past 2 decades has not been felt. We've also got a percentage of 41% saying that they wouldn't fight for their country. That they are not proud to be British. 50% believe the UK is stuck in the past. Only 11% would fight for Britain, and 41% said there were no circumstances at all which they would take up arms for their country. So I just want to know if you, whatever age you are you proud to be British? Are you still patriotic about it? Do you go places and say, yeah, I'm British and I'm really proud of it? We're great. Or has that changed for you? Did you used to be proud to be British? What has changed to stop you being proud to be British? I mean, you can't stop the Americans being proud of America. I mean, even if they don't have a clue what's going on in the rest of the world, they think their country, that's probably why they think their country is the best country in the world, because they don't really understand what's going on in other countries. They've been told from when they were tiny weeny things that America is the best country in the world. And if you're brought up believing that, that's what you believe. You don't believe that any other country has any freedoms whatsoever, etc., etc. But maybe because we're British and we are more outward leaning, because we're a tiny little island, we've had to be through history, that we see what other countries are like, and maybe that makes us less proud to be British. Or does it make you more proud to be British? And that's actually a good question. That's just sprung to my mind. Is, if you're not proud of Britain, of being British, what country would you like us to be like? Most like, you know what I mean? Which country do you look at and go, we should be more like that? We should have that going on. And some of you may be looking at Donald Trump right now going, I wish we were America right now, because he's sorting out all the woke stuff, he's sorting out all the ideals, he's making America great again. That's what we need. I would be more proud to be American than I am to be British. Or do you look at Canada? I mean, Canada, I think just the people of Canada, the attitude of Canada, I just think that Canada seems to be absolutely brilliant. I love it. And I look at Canada, I think, well, maybe could we be a bit more like Canada? Could we be a bit more like, I don't know, what countries would you want to be more like? Norway? Well, yeah, it's quite nice, but the tax is high. So I'd just like to hear where you place yourself in the world, because if you think Britain is a cesspit, I can point to countries that are far worse, and so can you. So, and people are literally attempting suicidal trips to get to Britain because they want to be part of it. So why are you not proud of Britain, if you are not? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000, and you can text the word talk and your message to 87222.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello. Good evening. I don't know why I'm talking to you like you're my dog. I don't know why I'm doing that. Hello. Hello. Good evening. It's good to have you with me. It's Petrie here until 1 o'clock. And blimey, what a weekend it was for sport. Alex Three Lines Irons joins me now, Talk Sport presenter and producer. Liverpool fans crying at the weekend, sobbing.
Yeah, I thought you were talking to me just then, going, hello.
Hello.
Like, I know I'm hairy, but I'm not that
it.
hairy.
I don't know why you do look a little bit like my dog, to be fair.
I mean, that's worrying.
No,
for
but
me, more
you've
for
met
the
my dog.
I think.
He's cute.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, he's
I
cute
wouldn't go
and
that far
adorable.
with me, though, but yeah, that's
You
very
have
true.
Very similar. Very similar. Although he talks more sense, mostly. But
maybe not about... Well, actually, no,
maybe not about sport. Liverpool, though, crikey, they crashed out to who? Plymouth Argyle.
They crashed out to Plymouth Argyle, who are bottom of the Championship, which is the division below the Premier League. They produced what is a classic FA Cup giant killing when they beat them 1-0 at Home Park, the home of Plymouth Argyle. Liverpool manager Arne Slot had made 10 changes from the side that had swept Tottenham aside to reach the Carabao Cup final, and paid the price as Plymouth made the most of their opportunities to secure a fifth place in the fifth round, which will see them travel up to Manchester to take on Manchester City. So not only have they beaten Liverpool, they've been rewarded with a trip to the Etihad. And with the form that City have been in this season, which has been so hit and miss, they, of course, nearly had an FA Cup upset of their own, going 1-0 down to Leyton Orient in the early kickoff on Saturday. They ended up pulling it back 2-1. To go through in the end, but it's been an interesting weekend for the FA Cup. I was up in Birmingham as Birmingham City played Newcastle United. For those of you that don't know, I've been following the FA Cup every single round since the extra preliminary round in August, following the winner of every round, starting with Wembley FC and going all the way through to, hopefully, to the final. So I was in Birmingham for that as I've been following them. Birmingham looked like they were going to pull off an upset as well, going 1-0 up within the first minute. Ended up going down 3-2 to Newcastle, which they got pretty lucky getting a goal which looked like it hadn't crossed the line, and also one which looked like it was a potential offside in the process. So it'll be, we've had quite an interesting weekend with FA Cup games. We also had an upset in Scotland north of the border as Queen's Park knocked out Rangers. They're in the division below Rangers in the equivalent, in the equivalent of the Scottish FA Cup. So it's been a big weekend for FA Cup killings, not just in this country, but across the border in Scotland as well.
I mean, it's really embarrassing when you look at what Liverpool must be spending on their players compared to what Plymouth Argyle have got to spend on theirs. How do they justify those massive fees to a losing team like that?
Well, it's a cup competition where anything can happen, and that's the spirit of the FA Cup as a whole. It's a competition that's known for these giant killings.
What I'm talking about is this huge division in the footballers and the placing of the footballers and Liverpool, the cost of those players compared to what Plymouth Argyle must be spending.
So they're in completely different. It's massively embarrassing, especially for a Liverpool side where fans were starting to talk about the potential of a quad again, which is what they were doing last season, and I think the season before, being like, we're going to win all 4 trophies that we can win, all the 4 major trophies going on in England and in Europe, and that's, of course, not going to happen in this year, partly down to the fact that Plymouth Argyle have beaten them. But that's, that is the joy of the FA Cup. It's the fact that a bigger team, a team in the Premier League, can rock up to a club who are lower down in the divisions, maybe not doing very well, and those teams that aren't doing as well, aren't in a high division, can really give those teams a really good game. And it's those teams that come down from the Premier League, maybe they'll rotate. Like Arne Slot rotated 10 players against Plymouth from the team that beat Spurs in the week. and they use it as an opportunity to bring in some of their younger players from the academies or from the reserves that don't get an opportunity.
That's a bit cocky, though, isn't it? Like, as they're going, we won't play our A team against these losers. We'll play our B team, and then they lose to them. I mean, that it just seems counterintuitive.
It's disrespectful to that extent, but you think that those teams that come down from the Premier League to play these teams, you think they would have enough in them with those players to win those games, and that's why they give them that opportunity to do so. Mohamed Salah and Virgil van Dijk weren't even on the bench in that game against Plymouth, and if those two players were playing, you would have expected them to win. But with the team that they put out against Plymouth, you would have expected them to win that game 99 times out of 100. But Plymouth got a penalty. They were better than Liverpool on the day. They defended like their lives depended on it, and they've been rewarded before that with a trip up to the Etihad to play Manchester City in the next round. And maybe we could see Plymouth do it again and beat City and get through to the quarterfinals.
Well, they're hungry, aren't they?
Fantastic to see.
They're hungry.
Exactly.
And they're probably working hard and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, they're also playing not very well in the Championship, so they'll beat Liverpool and then they'll play tomorrow and lose. Probably that's the way these things tend to go with teams that do well in the FA Cup. They'll play up for the big occasion. They're at home. The fans are behind them. They'll go and play away to someone else in the division who's maybe also not doing very well, and then lose that week that game. So things can change in football, and
at least
that's what
makes
makes it so exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Philadelphia Eagles beat Kansas City Chiefs. This seems to have been a bit of an upset.
Yeah, this was huge for the Eagles, where the Chiefs were very much primed and ready, and it seemed like they were going to become a dynasty, winning a potential three-peat, which has never been done in the NFL before. They've never had a team win the Super Bowl 3 years in a row, and the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely demolished the Kansas City Chiefs. They won 40 points to 22, which, if anything, flatters the Chiefs. They were annihilated. They were 40-0 down at one point during the third quarter, and it looked like they could be nilled. But there's always that worry with the Chiefs, especially if you don't want them to win, that they'll claw their way back into a game, even if they are 40-0 down. But they were the Eagles essentially had the biggest ever, I think, lead over a team in Super Bowl history when it was 40-0. But the Eagles were dominant. The Chiefs looked tired. They looked ragged. Patrick Mahomes was sacked 6 times, the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he also threw 2 interceptions as they tried to bid for NFL immortality.
Explain, he was sacked 6 times. I don't.
So a sack in American football means that a quarterback is hit by the defensive front line. So you have the 2 rows of players, the attacking and defensive players. The attacking team will defend their quarterback, and the defending team will try and hit the quarterback. And that's when that happens. That's called being sacked. He got hit 6 times, which
every day is a school day. I learned something.
Yeah, exactly. Who thought I'd be a teacher? I never thought that would happen.
I know.
So he was hit 6 times.
There'll be other people who didn't know. Wow.
Yes, exactly. Everyone's going to learn something.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty essentially convincing and a walkover win for the Eagles, who saw it as revenge for the time that the Chiefs beat them 2 years ago at the Super Bowl. They won 38-35 2 years ago. That was the Chiefs beating the Eagles. And they've essentially turned that around 2 years later, and they've annihilated them. And
they booed Taylor Swift because her boyfriend was playing for the fans of the Eagles fans.
Yes, they did. The Eagles fans booed Taylor Swift, and then everybody booed Donald Trump. So everybody's getting booed.
Yeah, but
there were a lot of celebrities.
People are thinking that she was being booed because she voted against Donald Trump, but it was actually because her boyfriend was playing in the opposite team.
Travis Kelce was playing for the Chiefs.
It's context,
so of course the Eagles fans are going to.
Yeah,
exactly.
Anyway, you can't persuade the MAGA lot. They'll decide their own thing. Wales, I mean, Wales at one point was extraordinary, and now what's happened?
So Wales have, of course, it's an extravagant country and it's an amazing place to visit, but their rugby team, their rugby union team at least, is not doing very well. The Wales centre, Nick Tompkins, has apologised to travelling fans following a 14th successive Test defeat. A second successive wooden spoon seemingly awaits after a record drubbing by France. That was followed by a 22-15 defeat against Italy. That's the first loss that Wales have suffered in Rome for 18 years. Wales have now dropped to a new low in the Rugby World Rankings to 12th. They are below the great rugby playing nation of Georgia, who sits in 11th place. It all seems to be, maybe there's a bit of a confidence lull over in the Wales camp. There seems to be maybe their manager isn't getting them up to playing to the way they wanted it to be.
Eddie left, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Eddie Jones was the England manager, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But essentially, the Welsh captain, Nick Tompkins, has essentially said that they are trying for the fans. We want to keep going and hopefully give them something to cheer about. The current Wales situation is devastating, and he specified that it's been tough. They're frustrated, they're devastated by what's been happening, and it's just a very, very demoralising time in the Wales camp because they just can't seem to make anything work at the moment.
What a shame. Well, they'll come back. They will come back. They've
Yeah,
got some amazing players. They just don't seem to be able to play as a team. I don't know what's going on. Alex, wonderful to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Alex, Three Lines Irons, TalkSport presenter and producer. A quick break and then we're heading off to the red carpet.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and it's always a good day when it's a Josh day. Josh from Entertainment Journalist of the Sun is with me. Hello.
Hello.
So you brighten up my day.
I'm glad.
I had a real Monday day today. I was like, oh, I hate Mondays.
I got to tell you, it's partly the weather, and I think it's the time of year. We've made it through January, but as such, it's the post-January slump where you're still to this day feeling like, thank God January's over, but you're still feeling from all of that.
But you've brightened up. You've brightened me up. Now tell me about September 5.
Yeah, September 5th.
5th. It is a movie that I am really looking forward to seeing.
It is an absolutely incredible film. So I want to take you back to the 1972 Olympic Games. Of course, it's held in Munich. Germany, it's their kind of big revival, and I want to take you to the sports team of ABC, the sports broadcasting team. This is one of the first Olympic Games in history where you've got round-the-clock coverage, it's all live. This is a big moment for Germany. And then you have, of course, the Palestinian terrorists that stormed their way into the quarters of the Israeli Olympic team, kill some of the team, take others of them hostage. And so this is the story of how the sports broadcasting team, who aren't necessarily adapted and are used to covering news, they're thrown into this crisis to provide coverage for millions of Americans of this
Didn't
extraordinary
they end up on an
event.
aircraft? Is this that story?
Well,
I was too young.
What basically happened was the hostages, in order to free the hostages with the negotiating, they were brought to the airfield.
That's it,
and
right.
then unfortunately all hell broke loose at the airfield. But again, and what's so brilliant about this film is it's a different way of telling this event, because it's not actually depicting the event itself, it's depicting the event as from the eyes of this television crew team on the ground.
This is right.
So it's, you know, you've got this amazing kind of point about time ticking and the time, and not just kind of filling time and the time it takes for broadcasters to get to air, but also obviously the dread of time of the hostages don't have the time left. So there's the real kind of element of that, this overbearing element, and you've got all hell breaking loose when it comes to this
and they're there
to the
for
sports team, and they're there for sport, and then they're thrown into this coverage, and as a result you have a whole load of journalism questions, because this is the thing, in that age they didn't have 24-hour rolling news.
No, they didn't have a phone that they could Google on
exactly
either.
So this was one of the first kind of big news, like rolling news events of its time. So you have loads of questions on how do you report the news, because there's this one moment in the film where this big news comes into the control room and they're thinking, do we report it? The news wires in Germany have reported it. The state radio or television in Germany has reported it. Do we report it too? And if so, how do we report it? Do we report it as fact, or do we report it as some say? So it's again, aspects that wouldn't necessarily, we wouldn't second guess them working in news in 2025, but these are the kind of the pioneering sort of questions with the first kind of big event of its kind. So this
I'm loving at the moment, there are so many films around about the Civil War, which is about a news crew trying to get to Washington. There's the other one with Kate.
Well, I'm going to be honest, I'm just loving the amount of Jewish representation that's on screen this year, especially, and this film, even though they shot it way before October the 7th. Sorry. Oh yes, of course, with Lee. Of course, we covered it on the programme.
Yeah.
But what makes this film so brilliant is it was filmed before October the 7th, but yet it feels very timely, because it delves into sorts of questions on, this is the first instance, or one of the first instances of Palestinian terrorism being shown on screen. So there's all of these sorts of questions on charged language, and again, how do we report that? So these issues all of a sudden feeling very topical, and then you've also got A Real Pain starring Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin about these two boys that travelled to Poland to pay homage to their grandmother, and then of course you've got The Brutalist about these brilliant Holocaust survivors emigrating to the US as well. So the amount of Jewish representation on screen this year is amazing. But let's get on to the exclusive. So I spoke to two of the main stars, Ben Chaplin and Peter Sarsgaard, in our first interview, and I asked them about just kind of to reflect on depicting journalism on screen in general.
Just for me, it was like, John McGarrah got to spend a lot of time talking to Jeff Mason, and you did some time did you do some time in a control room?
I did my time.
You did your time,
I did my time.
Yeah, but just for me, it was talking to people. So I spoke to a guy who, it was actually a personal connection. My girlfriend is friends with him and his wife, and his name's Al Bergman, and he's Al Berman, and he's a sort of famous man in news. And it's I always find it exciting when I find someone in a vocation that they just wouldn't want. They wouldn't do anything else.
It's one of the great things about being an actor is that you meet people that do all these other things.
That's
you
true.
know, that
It's
are
one of
more
the best
interesting than acting.
It's true.
You know?
So true.
What is more interesting than acting? Because that's the thing. I find it amazing.
Everything you act. Right?
Everything,
Yeah, when
yeah.
you've been doing it for sort of 35 years, sort of almost everything is more interesting.
Yeah, but it gives you entree to all these other different things. You know, I've been
Shoemaking. I've been a shoemaker. I've died many times, literally, and
They were a good laugh.
They seem to be. I've been
They
a
were a
shoemaker.
great laugh.
Brilliant. Let me just say, if I can, Josh, that John Hearn, our film reviewer, is reviewing this film from the point of view of the entire film.
Love that.
Tomorrow night.
I love that.
Go. It all works seamlessly.
Little bit of a plug there.
Yeah,
we love John, and we love John as well. Let's give him a special shout out.
Let's not go too far. Right, you have some more.
Yes, so actors John Magaro and Leonie Benesch. So John Magaro and Leonie also have starring roles in the film. John plays Jeffrey Mason, the head of the control room, and Leonie plays Marianne, a German translator. So you have, again, these different themes about kind of multiculturalism and how they kind of, well, maybe not multiculturalism, but again, the kind of how these two nations are working together. Leonie's character kind of delving into Germany, recovering post-World War II, dealing with this trauma. And when you've got this event, it felt like history repeating itself. The Germans were very worried about how this would look on the German government. So you have Leonie's character, Marianne, who's very much worried about this. So I asked both of the pair, what was it about this particular project that resonated with them most?
I mean, the most personal thing I could say is that, for Jeff in particular, you know, he's a young guy trying to make his way in this career. He wants to stay true to, you know, what it means to be a journalist. He also wants to rise. And I think that as an actor, you feel a similar thing as you're building a career. You know, you want to stay true to what it means to be an artist and be creative, but you also want to have opportunities to advance your career. So the idea of what do you sacrifice, what do you hold true, what do you sell out, what morals do you compromise, is something that's very present, I think, for actors. So that was very, very relatable for me.
Ian?
Well, for me, it is actually the thing that I could relate to personally was actually, I've not seen that the question of German guilt and German history seem portrayed like that. And I know that I've asked myself lots of questions when it comes to this in the past. So I loved that had a clever moment on screen. Like, I've not seen that before. And then also, like, what drew me to this project the most was the question of, like, how do we change an event unfolding purely by reporting on it, and the question of, is there such a thing as a neutral perspective? That's not very personal, but I found that interested me the most throughout this script.
And just very quickly, as actors, how does it feel to be in an Oscar-nominated film? Nominated for Best Screenplay?
Oh, that's all right.
I hope people go see it because of that. But sure, it's cool.
Yeah.
I love that, Leonie. Oh, yeah, it's all right.
John came up to me during the Oscars 24 and was like, do you know what's happening with September 5?
Yeah, we were at the Oscars last year because she was there with Teachers Lounge, I was there with Past Lives, and
yeah, we both had.
Yeah, so we're old hands.
Yeah, like Oscars,
We're used to
whatever.
it. Big deal.
They're lucky to have us.
Yeah, they are.
Oscars hardly know us.
It's not good. It's great.
They seem like it must have been fun on that set.
Like, I could imagine so, because especially when you've got such a heavy movie with heavy subject matter, and then you've got a cast who, all of them, you could just tell in the interviews, they've got a great sense of humour. I very much got that by chatting with all of them. So you can imagine them probably going, oh, that was a heavy day. Shall we get drunk? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's what I could probably imagine.
You have to when it's a heavy topic like that. I feel like that when I leave this place most of the time.
Well, listen, when you're dealing with the news agenda the way it is at the moment, I'm not bloody surprised.
Honestly, my brain is like mush.
Well, we've got the Oscars coming up, and that points us very nicely. We like the Oscars. It brings brings us up to our next interview as well. Tim Feldbaum, who is not only the director of the movie, but he also co-wrote the movie as well. And September the 5th, one of its Oscar nominations, it has been nominated in the Best Original Screenplay category as well. So, you know, we've got yet another Oscar nominee on the show. So, of course, when I sat down with him, the first thing I asked was, you got to react to the nomination.
Yeah.
It was an incredible honor. You know, when we started to work on this movie, I would have never thought that one day this would happen. And I see it generally also as a general honor for the whole movie, for everybody. Script, I think, is also in a way, it represents the whole movie. So I feel proud, and I feel especially proud also that the whole, in a way I see it for the whole crew.
What would you like, viewers and cinema goers, what would you like them to get out of the movie?
I think, look, today we are living in a time where the media landscape around us is so rapidly evolving. Everybody has a camera and a TV in their pocket now. And I think everybody also can be a reporter now. And we thought that it would be interesting to take a step back and see how a little bit more than 50 years ago, it was another turning point in media. And our movie is also about how technology has an influence on how we perceive world political events. And hopefully the audience will reflect on how we consume news and the media today through that historical lens.
He's so young.
Yeah, so he's actually, he looks much younger than he is. He's only about 40, between 42 and 43. Yeah. We don't know his exact birthday, we just know that he was born in 1982. Swiss director there, or Tim Feldbaum, nominated in for his screenwriting in September 5th. Best Original Screenplay there. We, of course, wish him the best of luck, but you could probably get the sense of this is a film, it is a thriller, it is very much well worth the watch. An intense watch, a captivating watch. I couldn't keep my eyes off the screen.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me a bit of like, is it Argon? That was a great film.
Argo. Well, the Ben Affleck directed. Oh, that was an amazing film.
I sat on the edge of my seat
the whole way through.
Oh, it was brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to it. So like I said, it's up my street. It's journalism, so I love seeing that reflected on, especially war journalism, things like that. Seeing it reflected on screen. So
you'll love it.
I'm looking forward to it. Josh, Ron, I'm looking forward to seeing you again.
See you soon.
See you soon. Right, let me tell you what's coming up here. We're going to be talking about Britain. And are you proud to be British? That's the question I'm asking. But right now, Phil Dave is going to be in the studio.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, it is fantastic to have your company, and for the next hour we are in the company of the smartest man in television and radio, in fact. Not smart here.
Oh, thanks.
But smartly
I was
dressed.
Almost really complimented then, and then suddenly give with one hand and take with the other. Ouch.
Three-piece suit, always. That's.
I've been called something very similar.
Yeah, you have actually. Yeah. Phil Dave, of course, in the studio. It's lovely to have you in the studio.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's nice to be here, but I'm not so sure. No, it's fine.
Listen, I have to keep you in your place. Because Gary will send a message saying that you're gorgeous and fabulous.
Sake. Yeah, no, I know. Actually, that gets very embarrassing.
So I have to bring you. I have to, you know.
I don't pay him to say it. You do know that, don't you?
No, I do.
Oh. Don't say you never give me anything.
Now, I have been talking about Gen Z.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. And for some reason, the Times has been asking them their opinion. I'm not entirely sure why, but
shouldn't have taken too long.
Yeah. Gen Z think the UK is racist and would not fight for their country under any circumstances. Now, you know, my boy is Gen Z, and he said, look, I'm not going to go and fight some foreign war for this country, but they bring it to my street and I'll fight to defend my family and my home and all of that. But this lot that were asked about it said not under any circumstances would they pick up.
So I tell you where that would change, and this is typical, I'm afraid, of a lot of Gen Zers, and I'm sorry if you are Gen Z and you're listening to this, I think you're dull. But if you've got
give me a call.
A situation where you find yourself actually physically under attack, what do you think fighting for your country looks like? You're not fighting for your country because you believe in, say, protecting necessarily the royal family, which you should do, but I mean, like, if you don't, you don't. What can I say? You might not necessarily believe in protecting the government. You know, some might say, almost understandable. I tell you what you're fighting for. You're fighting for your freedom. You're fighting for your right to actually exist in the home that you live in now. So you say you won't fight for your country. Yeah, you will. Of course you will, because it's human nature.
It is not it's you're fighting
exactly.
for, and the future of your family and your children and all of those things.
Absolutely, it's stuff and nonsense. It's because they think that it's sort of this
nebulous idea.
Going out and waving the Union flag everywhere and singing "God Save the King." No, I don't think for a second you'll do that. Sadly, because you've been brought up to hate your country.
I think that the problem is not that they've been brought up to hate their country, but I think the problem is that they're so far, that age group is so far removed from the Second World War, which you are and which I am, but we have parents, grandparents, great-grandparents that we still might know that were part of the war. My father was in the RAF as a secretary, I think.
But it was just as important, otherwise they wouldn't have taken on secretaries.
Well,
you know?
because he was a journalist, he had shorthand. So they just took him in to do shorthand and typing for him. But so there's I've been around veterans. I've interviewed hundreds of veterans. I absolutely, my favourite waste of time would be to be with somebody who took part in the Second World War. I've travelled over and on D-Day celebrations and covered those as a reporter and things like that. So I feel more connected. I think my generation, even your generation, although you're much younger than me.
Sadly, not much, but you're very kind.
But there is there's still a living connection, if you like, to those times. And I just don't think that Gen Z has got any understanding of what it's like to be in a war. They're very lucky. They have no idea what it's like to fight for freedoms and to see people or to know of people in your immediate family that died for those freedoms. And I think that's the problem, that they don't understand.
And that's actually, but that's the biggest difference between when you look at countries who still to this day have to fight for their mere survival versus the West. The West has been so, as you say, so far removed, so spoiled by not having to go to war. Well, the vast majority of people, and obviously there are people who have had to sort of, obviously in Iran and things like that, we know in Iraq, we get all that. But the point is that sort of if you've had to I suppose if you've got a military family, you think very differently. But if you are lucky enough to have avoided that and just enjoyed the freedoms that come with having a country that cares so much about its system, its citizens, then guess what? You're not very likely to say, oh yeah, actually I want to go and dress up in a nice uniform and carry a gun, because it's so far removed from them.
Yeah, and also the basic understanding of what it's like to be in that situation and to want to defend your way of life.
But I do have to say one thing: the way that everyone is encouraged now to be quite selfish and quite insular, you know, I actually understand that reason why people won't fight for their country, because I think the vast majority of people actually believe the world around them is revolting. So why would you fight for that?
Well, yeah.
You'd fight for you. You'd fight for your little world, in the sense that you'd fight for your family, your friends, and all of that. I'm fairly sure most people would. But if you're told that you're doing it for the country as a whole, I'm not completely convinced I'd want to fight for this country as a whole, because I believe there's an awful lot of this country that's very, very broken.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's the other thing with Gen Z, is that the social contract, and I keep talking about this social contract between Gen Z and the country, is completely dissolved. There's no hope of owning a property. There's no hope. I mean, my son's rent is so high. There's no way he and his girlfriend could save a single penny. You've got the gas going up, electricity going up, water cost going up, what's it called, council tax going up. Everything is going up. And rent is going up. How can they afford to save a single penny? So they know they're not going to be able to get a deposit together. They know that they're not going to be able to buy a property. You know, the insecurity that comes with that. And I do think,
not to mention actually the lack of ability to invest in the country.
Yeah.
You know, actually to own a piece of land in your country.
Yeah, you can't. So where's the hope that we've ripped away from that generation? And you know, it's the whole "you will own nothing and be happy." You know,
one of the biggest problems as well is 0-hour contracts. 0-hour contracts means that we don't even invest in people anymore.
I know.
Because we don't believe in them. We don't need to believe in them. We can just sort of say, actually, you're disposable. We don't need you.
Yeah, we don't need you today. Go away.
So why would anyone do that? So gone are the days when people actually would spend a lifetime building time and effort into one single job and company, because no one bothers to invest in them anymore.
Yeah. So there's no career path, there's no all of those things. So I do get why Gen Z feel hacked off.
Totally.
But I'm asking the question, are you proud to be British? And if not, why not? Because a lot of Gen Z will also deny their Britishness when they're overseas. They're ashamed to be British. They don't want to say they're British.
So I would say that I am proud to be British, but I'm proud to be traditional British. In other words, I sort of hark back to a sort of time when it was the tail end of the good old days, shall we say, of when...
Way before you were born.
Nah, you say that. I mean, a lot of people conveniently forget actually how good the early 90s were. Right, a lot of people conveniently forget that, because I'm telling you, the early 90s were good. I was there. I know it was, and it's all I remember.
I was there.
I know, but I remember it, because I know that you remember it as being better still before then. Do you see what I mean?
Much of the 90s, to be honest.
We won't dwell on that. But I know that sort of there are certain generations who were obviously remembering before the 90s and the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that. Of course it was better then. But what I'm saying is that sort of the tail end of that was into the early 90s, and that's what I remember. And I know that this country was a much nicer place to live than it is now. Much nicer. You know, there was less... how can I put it? Less crime, it felt like, anyway. I mean, I don't know whether that's true or not statistically. Maybe there was more, but it certainly didn't seem to hear every single day that some teenager has stabbed another teenager. You know, none of that. I didn't hear any of that. You heard how people had the opportunity to afford to buy houses if they wanted to go and maybe sort of end their job on a Friday and get another one on the next week, the beginning of the next week, because there were plenty of jobs to go around. People actually sort of cared about the jobs they were doing, not to mention manners, right? I know this sounds like a very silly and foreign concept now, but it never used to be. I remember Britain being a darn sight more polite than it is now. It used to be a really nice place to live, but now it's just horrible.
In my little bubble, everybody's
the NHS, actually. The NHS worked quite well in the early 90s, actually.
It did. So it's hardly surprising then, is it, that you've got a generation of people who feel they've been let down, there's no social contract anymore, there's no, you work hard, you can get here, you can buy this, you can have a house, or you can have a flat, or you can get on the property market in any way that you can. So that's sort of gone now, isn't it? I mean, it's just completely not possible for most people anymore. There's no social housing, so even if you are somebody who isn't working in a job that is extremely well paid, you might get a social house that would help you, support you to feel secure enough to have a family. And we, you know, we're talking about the fact that we're not replacing the birth rate with the death rate. It's just not, we're not having enough children. It all comes back to housing, because nobody feels secure enough to, you know, if my son and his girlfriend wanted to have a child, one of them would have to stop working and then the wheels fall off. They couldn't afford rent.
Absolutely.
And so they're not, that's probably not in their future. So there is a sense of just saying to these young people, we want you to work until you're 72, by the way, because that's how long they're going to have to work for till they get a pension, till you're 72 years old, and we're not going to give you anything for it.
It is, but I do have to say, though, that in a day and age where people are clearly living longer, and thankfully they're living healthier, living longer, I do understand why the pension age has to go up. It doesn't make sense to actually have a swathe of the population dependent on the state.
Well, I'm just looking forward to all the bricklayers, and see, it's all very well for somebody who's a white collar worker to say, yeah, the pension age should go up. But you've got people who work on the trowel, or you've got people who work very physical jobs, who literally will not be able to work at that age. And then what do they do until they reach pension? So it's all. We always hear about this from the government, who have they've got another pay rise coming of 2.8%. Which will take them up to about 95 grand.
Which is very well deserved.
Very well deserved, seeing as last year they got 5.5%. Not that I'm annoyed about it at all. But yeah,
I'd like 5.5% increase.
Any increase would be.
I was going to say, actually,
would be good.
Just like with the wages.
Yeah, let's not go down that road.
Can I just point out, though, that what I was saying was that it actually, I think it applies both ways, though, in exactly the same way that I don't like the idea of a generation or two becoming dependent on the state. I also don't like it sort of when they're of working age becoming dependent on the state. You know, I'm not just picking on the older generation here, make no mistake. And at the very least, one could argue that those who are of pensionable age, the vast majority of those individuals have at least paid into the system all their life. So it is about time they got something back from it. Make no mistake, I'm not attacking older people, which I know some people do, but I just think that there is too much encouragement for state dependency across the board.
But again, I think that comes back to the breakdown of the social contract. A lot of young people are going, what am I working my guts off for?
No,
why am I going to go and get a job?
Well.
Why am I going to go and get a job where I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get down to the market or do whatever it is? Why am I going to bother with that when I can't do anything with it? I can't buy a house. I can't do anything with this money. I might as well sit on benefits. And I sort of get that. I don't support it, but I do understand that attitude.
Well, I understand the attitude because the option is there. If that option was removed, well, then guess what? They'd soon get off of the backside and go and work, regardless of how much they felt that they didn't owe the country anything. It's more the point that it is there as an option now that's half the battle. If that option was removed, I'm not saying, by the way, let me be very clear about this, I've said it many, many times before, I'll say it again, we should be a country that protects the most vulnerable in society and never lets anyone who's down on their luck fall. Of course we shouldn't. But that is extraordinarily different from saying, you choose if you want to work or not. That's a very different thing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Right, let's have a look at the papers. And I just want to talk you through, we've got a front page of, hang on, let me see, is it the Washington Times? Race-based programs face legal reckoning. Non-profits cite the Civil Rights Act. This is racial discrimination in education has been illegal in the States for 60 years, but race exclusive programs continue to crop up at K-12 schools, and universities in the name of promoting diversity, equity and inclusion. So there's going to be, I mean, the Civil Rights Act is a biggie, isn't it, for America, and that is going to be taken into the courts.
Yeah, I mean, I dare say that, you know, Americans, if there's one thing they love more than anything, is taking everything to court and suing. But I should point out that...
Well, their president, mostly, at the moment.
I'm just a great believer that the only way for true equality in this world is if you give people the chance to earn something on merit. That's really the only way for equality. The irony being is that with all of these diversity schemes that sort of has seemed to have plagued the Western world of recent years, is that what you're actually doing is you're saying you need only apply if you are of this background, and that is segregation.
That's not true, though. That is not how DEI works. That is not how DEI works. How it works is you've got 10 people going for a job. 2 of them happen to be brown. 1 of them is in a wheelchair. They have to have the right qualifications, the right everything else to get to that final 10. And DEI is to stop the person. They've all got the same qualifications, they've got exactly the same qualifications, and then the boss, who's a white man, decides he wants to hire in his own image. DEI is about saying, look, you've got 12 people to choose from. You don't have to choose the one in the wheelchair or one of the brown people, but just bear in mind that they are as equally qualified as all of the others. Nobody's been forced to hire under DEI. All it is to say, make sure you're aware that there are different choices you can make. That's how DEI works.
And if that is how it works, then that is more than fair. But unfortunately, what the problem is that we see so often in a lot of cases that there are plenty of jobs out there where people actually say you need not apply if you are of white heritage.
Yeah, I mean, that's wrong. That is clearly and emphatically wrong.
And that is driven by diversity and equality.
I don't agree with women-only shortlists because I happen to think we don't need them because we're brilliant. But I do think that there is still a diversity issue with women. You just got to look at the amount of women that are on the boards of the FTSE 500 or even the FTSE 100, and it's very, very low, and that might be low because women are rubbish at business. I happen to think that is not the case because there are some absolutely brilliant women in business, but I do think there is still an issue, and Trump suggesting that the controllers working for aircraft control were mentally unwell or under DEI and weren't qualified is emphatically not true, and it's been proven to be not true. And in fact, the only people working during that plane crash were white men. So that Yahoo sucks to his DEI being the problem there. I think we have to be very, very careful with Trumpising DEI. That is not how it's meant to work. Is to say, right, oh, you're mentally unwell, you can have a job.
Make no mistake, I'm not Trumpising anything. I'm saying how I believe personally the only way for true equality in this world is, I think that there is a problem certainly with the process of employing people, but that does not mean that the government needs to legislate and tell someone that you have to employ someone of a certain background. It's the way I believe that it could be the most equal is that people should withhold names and ages on CVs. I think they should be told that they present CVs anonymously, and then that from those particular curriculum vitae, that is what would be chosen because it would be on merit.
A lot do, because there is, they see Muhammad Al-Ali on there and they go, I'm not interviewing him. So it works the other way as well, that it does work, that people will go, a woman, Sharon Smith.
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. So that's why you should withhold that information on a CV. I don't understand why it's sort of been the case that everyone has felt the name to include that sort of business on the CV.
No, I agree. Name and age should and gender.
It's irrelevant.
Name, age, and gender should not, unless it's relevant to the position. Gender relevance, which it might be at some point. But I totally agree with that. But you've got to remember that in a world that is it's still largely run by in this country the white man and in the higher positions of power, that it tends to be that they hire in their own image, and they feel comfortable in their own image. They feel, they're not going to employ somebody who's older than them because the older person might have a go at them or know more. So they think, well, no, I won't have somebody older, even though he'd be brilliant for the job because he might know more than me. I don't want a woman there because, So there is a case to say people are racist, they are misogynistic, they are ableist. So there has to be a way to take that out of the equation.
But there is also a way of doing it without making it sound like just because something is predominantly white men that somehow it's wrong or evil as well.
I'm not saying it's evil. I'm just saying that people tend to hire in their own image. They always have, and they always will. because that's what you're comfortable with. Birds of a feather, all of that. So, and people are inherently ableist. They might just go, oh, we don't want somebody in a wheelchair. That means we're going to have to put a ramp in and all that. And that's not being fair. Being fair, all anybody's asking for is just a meritocracy that is fair, and that can only happen if the person hiring believes in the same thing. And if they don't believe in the same thing, then you have an imbalance of power.
But at the same time, you also have a situation where too often we're being told now that, and it's certainly how it feels to me, you know, I'm speaking as someone who obviously is white male and British, that I somehow am a part of a problem. Do you see what I mean? I am not an issue.
You're not part of a problem. What you are, I'm afraid, is part of the majority that do well in this country. Whether you do yourself...
But I'm part of the majority of this country, full stop.
No, you're not. White women are.
Well, you know what I mean.
You see that. But again, that is the point, isn't it? But it is a case that up until recent history, white men have called all the shots in this country. They have. They've had the best jobs. They've had everything, despite the fact that women's education has been coming up to meet them, and in some cases surpassing them. And that somehow has to be balanced. And when you try to balance something, you often knock it the other way. And it does need to come back to the central line. I agree with that. And nobody's saying that white men are the problem, but I think
a lot of people do.
But I think a lot of white men don't understand what it's like to not be a white man.
Maybe, look, and I would never ever defend the idea that someone, just because someone's a woman, that they should be paid less than a man. I've never understood that, and I never will excuse it.
No, it's completely wrong.
I would never ever excuse that, because if someone is just as qualified but they happen to be a woman, why the hell shouldn't they get the same amount of money? That makes no sense to me at all.
It doesn't make any sense, no.
But it's...
But unfortunately,
I'm just saying
even
that
though it's illegal, it still happens.
But I'm just merely pointing out that there is this real sense, and it's starting to annoy a lot of people, myself included, to be honest.
A lot of white men.
Well, yes.
The only
frankly.
people I hear who talk out against diversity and inclusion are white men. They're the only body of people.
It's almost
as if you're being challenged.
No, it's almost as though we are the sacrifice for ticking a couple of boxes.
You're not the sacrifice. You have been predominantly the most successful in history in this country, and it is time to rebalance that. Nobody's saying that you should not have it, but it is other people. And the only people I've ever heard say it's wrong, there shouldn't be this and it shouldn't be that, is white men who are afraid of other people stealing their crown. That's the truth of it.
I'm fairly sure there are others who have said otherwise as well.
No.
There are, definitely. On this station alone there are.
Who are predominantly what?
Not white and male, let me tell you.
I think they are.
No, I'm not saying predominantly. I'm saying that they're not the ones I'm referring to.
Right. We've got to take a break. We've overrun.
Oh, have we?
Yeah.
Oh, what a terrible shame. We'll carry on squabbling during the break.
Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Good to have your company. With me in the studio is Phil Dave, and we're going through the papers now. The Daily Mirror. Yeah. Kia, we must save pubs. Thanks,
Oh,
Kia.
I never thought I would say this, but I think the Prime Minister's got something right for once.
Blimey.
And I don't think I'd ever thought I'd say it from the front page of the Daily Mirror either.
But what's he going to do about it? Just say it.
Oh no, listen, he's made the right noise. Now he's got to actually sort of put some sort of action in place. The fact that, let us not forget, it wasn't that long ago that his government were talking about banning smoking in pub gardens. So he obviously doesn't care about pubs that much.
No.
But let me be very clear, this is the right thing to say. You know, when we say that we need to save British pubs, we absolutely do. Hospitality is
Give them a
backbone.
VAT break. Give them a proper VAT break, like they did in Ireland.
But hospitality is an absolute backbone of British industry, and we're killing it.
Yeah.
And for what? What are we killing for? Sorry, what are we saying that we're worried that people are suddenly going to become binge drinkers? Are we saying that we're worried that people are suddenly going to actually start conversing and socialising a bit? Well, we can't have people conversing.
Can't have that.
Let's do it all through online, where we can control what someone's saying to each other. Right.
Yeah, look, listen, there are very simple things they could do, and that is to reduce the VAT to 5%, which is what they did in Ireland, and they've absolutely flown their hospitality sector. I happen to know a little bit about the hospitality sector because my sister. But it is... we must save the pubs, but he's got to do something properly about it. He can't just go, oh, I go to the pub and have pints, or however he says it.
And do you know the other thing as well, which is going to be exceptionally controversial, and I'm speaking as someone, by the way, who does not smoke, but I don't actually agree with banning smoking in public houses.
No, I think they've dropped that now. I think they've dropped that one. But you and I like a pub.
I'll say.
Yeah, we like pubs.
And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. However much I hated pubs stinking of cigarette smoke, and I still would, you know, if I was in that kind of environment, I'd think it would be horrible. I can't help but think it's a heck of a lot better smelling like cigarette smoke than stale old booze and you know what at closing time.
Yeah, and BO.
Oh, shocking.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. But yes, save the pubs. We absolutely have to. They are integral. They are absolutely vital to.
And also clamp down on these greedy breweries that are bleeding publicans dry, by the way. This is a massive problem as well. The amount that they are charging landlords and landladies before anyone starts getting upset and inequality, any of that nonsense. But, you know, but the fact that you've got people who are literally being bled dry and they can make no profit,
it's
not really a wonder that they don't want to run pubs.
I know, it's awful, and pubs are so vital to our society. I think they're part of us, right? The other story on the front of the Mirror, this has really wound me up all day, Taylor versus Trump. The fact that Trump got a cheer, and he reckons that Taylor Swift got a boo because she voted against him. I hate to break it to his royal ego, but it was because her boyfriend was playing on the Chiefs team and they were in the Eagles stadium. So that's why they booed Taylor Swift. Nothing to do with you, Trumpy Dumpy Pants. Anyway.
What more can you say about that?
Nothing. Right, so, just quickly, we better take another break because otherwise I'll get lost. Evening, Petrie. So happy that the bootylicious Mr. Phil Davis joined you. Brilliant show. P.S. Can you tell Phil he still owes me a tenner? And that's from Gary. A quick break, back in a second.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, it's good to have you with me. It's Petrie here until the top of the hour with Phil Dave. Just to let you know, Donald Trump has signed proclamations imposing those 25% tariffs. We are waiting. He's just been in the Oval Office on all steel and aluminium imports, or aluminum if you're American, into the US. The president says there will not be exceptions or exemptions to the new rule. Canada and Mexico will be the hardest hit by the move, but the UK will also be affected. So will America. So there you go. That's the latest. We'll get more details as they come in. The Times. Starmer set to sidestep EU's tariff war with the US. Britain is not expected to join the European Union in retaliating against the US after Donald Trump announced plans to hit steel imports with 25% tariffs.
Well, look, I am not going to sit here and defend anything that hurts the EU, because it gives me enormous pleasure to see that after all the pain they inflicted on our country. However, I would say that it would be wrong from a perspective of our government trying to do anything to wind up America, as they still, technically speaking, remain the UK's closest ally. So I think that sort of we need to be very careful on that front to sort of say that we should encourage our government to do anything that will annoy the US, not least of all because I think we know, from the previous term in office and from the first few weeks of the current term in office, that Donald Trump is not afraid to put America first, and he's not afraid to do anything that is going to bite back at anyone who tries anything on with him. So actually, I, again, find myself sort of agreeing with Starmer's move here.
Yeah, I mean, I another time we'll discuss what you think was the pain that the EU inflicted upon us. But for right now...
How long have you got?
Do you know, yeah, exactly, which is why I haven't started you on it now. But when you say that Donald Trump is looking at America first, America buys this steel because it needs this steel.
Oh, no, please don't get me wrong.
So
I'm not defending...
is he really putting America first with these blanket tariffs?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't think, to be fair, I don't agree with the tariffs at all, just for the record.
Because it's not going to help America.
No. What he needs to do, if he had an ounce of sense about him on this particular front, is I understand the notion of putting tariffs on imports in a bid to encourage people to buy from within America.
They don't have the manufacturing.
But what you have to do is you've got to build up that manufacturing first to meet the demand, and then impose tariffs on the countries that you import from in the fullness of time. So he actually needs to sort of set out a plan to say, OK, well, within the first 6 months, we're going to focus very much on building up that infrastructure to actually get the demands that we need met within the US. Then after that 6 months, we're going to impose 5% tariffs, for example.
The trouble is that it would take longer than 6 months, and he knows it. So this is a quick...
No, I'm just using ballpark.
But what I'm saying is this for him, this is the quick solution to what he's been saying, America first. Because it would take years
for sure, but unfortunately, I think by doing this could be almost detrimental. Well, not almost, it will be, I'm sure.
It will be. Yeah. Second MP is suspended by Labour over abusive text. You can say anything you like about Labour, but they are quite quick on getting rid of these idiots.
It's gesture politics. They've got them actually in the party in the first place, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
So Labour was forced to suspend a second MP last night after he was accused of making cruel and homophobic remarks in WhatsApp groups. Really?
When are they going to learn?
Really? Sorry, what? When on earth does anyone sort of make a comment who's in that position, who makes a comment, whether it be homophobic, racist, whatever it might be,
and all of them were there, by the way,
and they
didn't leave
just
one out.
Don't think there's anything wrong with it, and they don't think it's ever going to be found. Yeah. And I can't be bothered. I mean, it's gesture politics. It's nothing. It's pointless. You know what? So what? You suspended it. Great. Do you know what? Now, actually see if there's any sort of criminal charges.
Well, there will be.
That's when I might be just about impressed.
There will be, because other people have reported them to the police. And look,
let's see what happens.
A lot of people would say, though, oh, this is a private call. You can't have a private conversation anymore. Listen, you can.
But sorry, but a WhatsApp group is not private.
No, and also, these are our representatives in the Commons. They are meant to have no outside politics, if you like, in position on race or gender. They're supposed to look after all their constituents, and if they are being found to be leaning against some of these constituents, then they're not doing their job. So out you go.
I just don't understand it. I mean, then you've also got the other.
There was pathetic boys' club mentality.
And then you've also got Andrew Gwynn, who posted anti-Semitic and sexist remarks pending an investigation. Just for crying out loud! Like, what is wrong with these idiots?
I know. Grow the thingy up.
But this is actually part of it. Is that unfortunately, what you've got is a group of individuals who, again, for so many years, have just been allowed to sort of be in the old people's club, where there's a select few of them. They're a very exclusive group. They've got away with whatever they want by doing very little work, and then just there's no ramification.
But encouraged certainly into the anti-Semitism by Corbyn. No doubt.
It wasn't
no doubt
just
about
anti-Semitism. You know, Corbyn was a vile human being. He hated a lot of people. Don't forget, he would have hated anyone who was successful, so he would have encouraged hate on that front, to anyone who was maybe sort of, say, from the right wing, all those nasty right-wingers. It was everything like that. He is a vile human being.
But I was just saying that, at least they acted quickly.
I'm sure he would be, if he was here to defend himself, he'd probably say...
He never will be.
He's not vile. He's not vile. He's a great believer in peace and equality for all. Right.
No, he walks into a studio, I walk out, I'm afraid. But... The Guardian, though, says Labour was warned about the vile posts a year ago.
Oh, that's reassuring.
Yeah. So although they're saying, no, what they did is they reacted quickly when they were caught out. They didn't react quickly when they found out. So they're being found out and being caught out are two completely different things, right? So, so they were told about it, they knew about it, but they didn't do anything about it until they were caught out. And then they did something about it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's the same with these people who issue an apology for any offence caused. No, you don't. You're sorry you got caught. It's as simple as that.
And there's a picture of Angela Rayner there with the King. And there's an odd thing about the photograph. If you look at her feet, she looks like she's floating.
Well, she's wearing quite curious shoes because I've seen they've got
the ground.
Yeah, but the shoes that she's got on have got quite high platforms to them. Which, don't get me wrong, I mean, I don't blame her. I'm, as we speak, wearing Cuban heel. So, believe me, I'm all for raising yourself up. But
I've got a platform.
Mind you, I wouldn't raise myself up above the King.
No, absolutely.
But it's, interesting. You just think that the King, you can see, he's exceptionally smartly dressed, and you just look at Angela Rayner standing at him, and although he's not terribly dressed, you also have to say, don't know.
Yeah. I wonder how much of those clothes she paid for.
That's true.
The Sun newspaper, I love this quote. Labour stumbled into a fresh wokery row last night when it emerged that the new health minister thinks people that self-identify as a llama, people who can self-identify as a llama. Now, the actual quote on this was that she was asked about, a reporter said to her, so is it okay if somebody says that they're a llama? And she said yes, and they should be treated with respect. So she didn't actually come out and say, if you want to identify as... And I think there's a subtle difference in that. But there's a great picture of a llama on the front page.
But she could have also said, no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
And that's the problem here. So you're right, absolutely, it is not like that this particular...
But they're saying critics say her remarks are absurd.
Yeah, but this is Ashley Dalton we're talking about here. It's not as if Ashley Dalton came out and said this off her own back, but I'm assuming she identifies as a her. Heaven help me if she identifies as a llama, who knows. But the point is...
I do.
All she had to say was, no, it's not okay. And because, again, we live in a day and age where we're terrified of offending just one person, where actually we end up offending so many people through not wanting to upset the minority. I don't care if there's someone out there who identifies as a llama. Do you know what would have happened in the early days, in the old days, if that was the case? They would have actually been given psychiatric help, and quite rightly so. Genuinely, quite rightly so.
I just don't know what harm it would do if you identify as a llama.
But you're not a llama.
If you identify...
It's not that it doesn't...
If you're identified
not a llama.
as a tiger or a rhinoceros and you hurt people, but llamas don't do anything, they just spit. So
well, I mean, where I come from, if you're
llama.
spat at, is that actually, that is, technically speaking, GBH.
If somebody wants to identify as a llama, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
I do, because it's damaging.
It depends. If they walk into my house and then do a dump in the middle of my carpet, then I would care. I'd say, can you use the bathroom, please? But other than that...
And they say I don't have to, because I'm a llama. Yeah. I don't have to use the bathroom, because I don't recognise toilets.
Could you leave my house then, please? Because I don't want you here if you're going to dump on my carpet. So that's the only way it would worry me. Other than that, I don't have a problem.
No, it really, it's honestly, I mean, I know that we jest about it, but it actually is a very dangerous message, because what it's saying, it's actually encouraging some very unsavoury and really quite unhealthy behaviour.
Yeah, no, that I will agree with. If it encourages children who are a little bit mixed up to think that they're donkeys or llamas or whatever, I agree with you. But on the whole, does anybody identify as a llama? It'd be quite difficult to identify as a llama.
I mean,
how would you pass that off? Apart from dumping on my rug.
Well, the woolly jumper might give it away, I don't know.
Right.
There you go.
That's what it is. Quick break while we discuss llama fashion. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, my crack team, I said crack team, behind the glass, have discovered that on TikTok there are 2 people who identify as llamas.
Well, there we go. The minority.
So I'm not inviting them round just in case. Right, the Daily Express. Stop the tax so I can be a farmer like my mummy and daddy. This relates to... Do you know what? Coming into work today, coming in on the A40, the number of... it was the weirdest sight to
all
see
the tractors,
tons of tractors. I was kind of mesmerised by it, really, because see all these tractors leaving London on that road. And I had one question to ask. which anybody who lives in the farming community, could you answer this? If they can travel so fast down a dual carriageway, how can they go 2 miles an hour in the countryside? Is it just a off?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think they can travel that fast.
Well, they blooming can. They go all cracking along the road.
Well, but also, if you think about it, you're trying to navigate quite a large vehicle. I'm not excusing. I get very annoyed as well.
You're telling me they weren't doing 60 down the motorway, because they blooming were. And I tell you what, they don't do that on country roads. They deliberately drive really slowly.
Well, I don't think it's deliberate, but I also imagine that it must be quite difficult navigating a vehicle that size down a country lane. To be fair. Well, it is.
I've driven tractors.
Have you?
Who are? I was brought up in the countryside. Of course I drove tractors.
Sorry, I was brought up in Stanmore. It doesn't mean that I've sort of decided to be like, I don't understand what you mean. It doesn't matter. You don't have to drive a tractor.
But I have.
I know. But you just sort of said it like as a matter of fact, as if like, why wouldn't I have driven a tractor? I live in the countryside. Yeah. But it doesn't mean you have to have driven a tractor.
You don't have to. I wasn't forced into it.
No.
It was good fun.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then how did you not know they could go quicker then?
Well, because I was probably in a field bogged down with mud at the time. No, just that they do go very, very fast. And I just want to know if they can go that fast, why they don't choose to when I'm behind them on a country road. That's all.
Oh.
That was the question. So farmers, like I said, hundreds of tractors in town today at Westminster. Nobody came to greet them. No politician came out to chat to them apart from Mr Farage. So nobody paid any attention to them, which is really rough.
Well, it's terribly simple. It doesn't fall in line with this government's plan to take over as many of our fields as possible so that they can put revolting solar panels on it. That's clearly what they're trying to do. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it's not even subtle. This tax that they're talking about, so that unfortunately people are, well, forced into selling off their land either ridiculously cheap or whatever it may be, you know full well that it's going to be probably GB Energy who buy it out.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's £1 million and everybody's going, well, that's a lot of money. But what used to happen is these tractors that we're talking about, which costs hundreds of thousands of pounds to buy, and all the other farm equipment, that used to be separate from the inheritance tax. It's now been bundled in. So if you've got a couple of tractors and a couple of combine harvesters, then that takes you up to your £1 million already. So the tax you pay is really, really high. And those things used to be separate. And they're not. And we need farmers. Revolting. We need them. We need the food. So they should just raise the limit to those
it's just
people
revolting.
with £10
I mean,
million
whichever way. Well, they should just scrap it. That's what the bottom line is. They just shouldn't be doing this at all. It's absolutely revolting. You know, it's yet again another attack on British industry.
Yeah, I just think it's just really, really sad, isn't it? The Daily Star. Let's have a look at this. AI boff. I love the boffins, the term that they use. AI boff says temperamental metal Mickeys are highly likely to wipe us out very, very soon, which is nice. Evil psycho scumbag chatbots are very likely to wipe out entire populations, says an expert specialising in evil psycho scumbag chatbots.
Well, that's nice. Yeah. And this is also the same newspaper that for many years has been trying to terrify us, including, I vaguely remember, the Daily Star making quite a fuss over the Millennium Bug, saying that planes were going to come crashing down from the sky and that everyone was going to die around the time of Y2K. Daily Star has also reported on many an occasion UFOs and asteroids that are going to crash into the Earth.
That's why we love the Daily Star.
And to kill us off. I think Daily Star has also sort of said that black holes are going to swallow up the Earth. And now the Daily Star is saying revenge of the psycho scumbag chatbots. I might believe it when I see it.
Even a stopped clock is right twice a day. One day they will be right. And it could be this day.
Yeah, I just don't buy into it, personally.
Well, there's a big AI
I will say one thing,
meeting,
though. You know full well that I am obviously sort of a bit of a tech head from our other discussions that we have frequently on this very programme. And I have always said that I am concerned that AI is going to fall into the wrong hands, and when it does, then yes, it could be really quite unpleasant. But I don't believe for a second that we're anywhere near the day and age in which AI bots, especially chat bots, which, by the way, is software, it's not actually physical, but AI chatbots are going to wipe out humans. And the clue here, by the way, is that in this particular article by one Jerry Lawson, says evil psycho scumbag chatbots are, quote unquote, very likely. So that doesn't actually mean it will happen. It means that there's a likelihood of it happening. And it also doesn't give a timeline per se, but it says very, very soon. Well, what does that mean?
Was it with you I was chatting, or somebody else, about how one a bit of software killed another bit of software?
Yes, it was me.
Yeah.
So what happened was
they were trying to update.
Yes. So what happened was that this story was from a few weeks ago, and it was that AI software had managed to outsmart another piece.
Killed it.
Yeah. So what it meant is that I suppose that it was a line in the proverbial sand that they'd managed to cross, because it meant that without human intervention, AI had managed to better itself, basically. But
and
again,
it saw this new software as a threat and killed it. That's kind of creepy.
Just think that it's software based at the moment, and as long as we don't really transfer it to any sort of physical being like a robot, we're not really
or a chip in a human brain.
Well, there's that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thought for the day.
Chip on the shoulder is okay.
Can't we just unplug the killer psycho scumbags? There you go.
Well, do you know what the trick is? Turn off the internet. They won't get very far.
That's true.
Yeah. Mind you, if you turn off the internet, you probably wouldn't
none
be
of
able
us
to
will get
listen
very
to
far.
talk. So.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to navigate my way around the London streets without
really?
a sat nav.
Oh no, I think
well,
I could
not
just
these days, because all the roads are blooming closed, or they've got tiny little signs that say you used to be able to drive down this road. In fact, you were able to drive down it yesterday, but you can't drive down it today.
No, we've got to preserve it for the cyclists that never use it.
Yeah, that's true. Brutalism. I really like brutalist buildings.
Really?
I do.
Really?
I do.
Which is your favourite?
Oh, in King's Cross. What's it called? They're fantastic flats.
Is it the ones that sort of like a step effect?
Yeah, that's a brutalist build. I think they are fantastic. I absolutely love them.
I can't work out whether or not I love or loathe the National Theatre. You know, because if you look at that on the South Bank, that's technically speaking brutalist.
That technically is,
and it's. I can't ever work out if it's architectural genius or if it's hideous.
I used to think it was hideous, but I think I quite like it now.
I don't know.
But they're talking about these flats, and I wish I could remember where this is. This is in Kensal Rise. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember the name of it. This particular block of flats, which it's really brutal. It's a concrete block. But the flats now are going for £1 million. So the brutalism at its ugliest, but where the flats are £1 million. So I do like brutalist architecture. I think some of it around London is really quite staggering. I don't like all of it, but some of it, where it is deliberately in your face, is actually, I think, something quite... Trellick Tower, thank you very much indeed. There's a very good little restaurant under the Trellick Tower, little cafe. They do the most wonderful food. So if you get a chance, go to under the Trellick Tower. It's delicious.
There's a little restaurant under a block of flats in St John's Wood I quite like. It's quite similar. It's not quite brutalist, but yes.
Yeah, no, this is the Trellick Tower. It's a community cafe. It is wonderful. It's wonderful, wonderful. And the Trellick Tower, I think, is extraordinary as a building.
That's certainly one word.
Yeah. But the flats in there now going for £1 million. I'm not surprised, because in London everything's a blooming £1 million now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it just goes to show. I mean, especially when it's sort of certainly socialist housing, which, you know, is social housing. Why did I say socialist housing? Sorry, social housing, which when it was built back in the day, no one could have ever imagined some of the prices that some of it's going for. It's bizarre.
I mean, I am spinning a little bit that in the Trellick Tower it'd be £1 million, but look, it's a great area. It's near Portobello Road. I think a staggering building. I mean, it's not beautiful in the pretty sense of the word, but I just love it as a building. I think it's extraordinary. Anyway, I think we're pretty much running towards the end of time.
Oh,
not the end of times.
Is that with the AI robots?
That's not quite where we're heading, but we're certainly heading towards the end of this paper review for Tuesday.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Phil.
A pleasure as ever.
Yeah. Are we going to carry on the fight later, or are we going to...
I do hope so.
We argue all the time. We don't care.
Born out of love.
Out of love. Thank you very much indeed. Now, coming up on this programme, the next hour is all yours. I keep saying this is the only place on the station now that you get a full hour to yourselves. No guests, nothing else to interrupt, no squeezing you in before a break. This is about you and me talking, so it's your chance to talk back, so please do take advantage of it. What I want to talk to you about is Generation Z and what they think of Britain, and I want to ask you if you are proud to be British, and if you're not proud to be British, then who would you rather be? Or what is it you're not proud of? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It is the 11th of February. And it is Petrie here with you for the next hour. And this hour is yours. It's your chance to talk back. It's your chance to have your say. And to have what I hope will be, as usual, a grown-up conversation where everybody's point of view is welcome here. We may not agree, but we will part respectfully. So 20 years ago, The Times published a groundbreaking survey into young people in Britain. Now, its subjects were the first millennials to come of age, and they did so amid a very different part of history than the one we're in now. It was New Labour, there was hope in the air, it was Britpop, all of that was going on. There was hope to buy a property, there was hope to get the career that you wanted, there was hope, abundant amounts of hope. And the results show it. They say that a lot of the young people 20 years ago did believe in this country, would fight for this country, did support the country, did support the government, did support everything about the country in the majority of cases. You fast forward now to Gen Z, and Generation Z, by and large, think that Britain is a racist country. When asked, 48% think that the nation, we are racist, compared to 36% who do not, suggesting that the progress of the past two decades is not felt by a vast swathe of young people. If asked to fight for their country, few young people would be willing to step up to do that, to defend this country, defend their way of life. Whereas in the old survey, most people would step forward to defend their country. Now, I think this has got more to do not just with the times that we're in and that breakdown of the social contract between us and young people. It has to do with being 20 years on from what was a very dark time, not just in this country, but in the whole of Europe. The fact that we nearly fell to fascism, the fact that the whole area, the whole continent, Russia, everything was always on the table for fascists, and that was scary, right? And I think my generation, your generation perhaps, we had a closer contact to that very real possibility of losing our way of life. And I think that's possibly why those millennials 20 years ago perhaps had more of an inkling about what it would be like to lose the freedoms that we have, and very quickly. I mean, Hitler managed to destroy democracy in 2 months. In 2 months. Which is extraordinary. So I think we had a closer connection to that history than perhaps Gen Z do, because they've been very lucky. They've had nothing but a peacetime world to live in, as I have. I've only had a peacetime world to live in, but I knew about the war. My grandfather, relatives of mine that died in the war, my father served in the RAF. All of those things. So there was a closer connection to it. If not an immediate understanding, there was definitely a sense of how quickly it could all have changed for us. And I wonder if that's why Gen Z really don't see any real threat. There's never been a real threat to this country in terms of external forces, certainly not since Gen Z has been around. So I wonder if that's it. I also do think that the social contract breaking down between young people and this country has had an awful lot to do with it. There's no hope. There's no hope of owning a property unless your parents are very wealthy and can put down a deposit for you. There's no hope of perhaps staying in a career long term or building a career. There's no hope of companies investing in you because they believe in you. You just feel like you're a number or a person on a factory line. I mean that even if you're working white collar in an office. So I wonder if that also has an impact on the way that young people feel. I'm not one of those young people, so if you are one of those young people and I'm putting words in your mouth that you don't agree with, then do give me a call. I would really like to hear it from your point of view, why it is that you do not have this country in your heart, actually, that it's not there, that you wouldn't defend it, that you're ashamed of it, that when you go overseas you pretend you're not part of it, and what has gone wrong. And in the meantime, the number is, by the way, is 03444991000. But if you are somebody who used to be proud of this country but you are no longer, I'd like to hear from you as to what's changed. And also, if you're not proud of this country, is there a country out there that you would be proud to be a part of? Is there a country at the moment you can look at and go, actually, I like the way they do things. I'd like to be part of that country. I'd be proud to be Canadian, or I'd be proud to be American, or I'd be proud to be French, or I'd be proud to be Norwegian. Which country can you point to? Or would it be for me, it would probably be an amalgamation of a few countries. I mean, I want Scandinavian countries care for, you know, probably, can't think of a country with a low tax level at the moment. Mexico's tax, you know, I mean, that's what I'd like, but I don't think that's possible. So listen, give me a call. I'm really interested if you're still proud to be British. 0344 499 1000, and message me if you can, 87222. Maybe you do have a young person who is fighting for their country, who is in the military. Again, that would be really, really interesting. So, Derek has said, my grandson makes me feel proud to be British. He would fight for his country. So that's Derek in Manchester. And Joanna says, I am proud to be British. I have a family who fought in both the World War I and II, and a daughter who served in the military. We contribute to our society. She then goes on to say, I'm not proud of a government that isn't proud to be British and is teaching the next generation to be ashamed of our history. Their example will be our undoing. And I have to tell you, when I was at school, we didn't learn about the First and Second World Wars, and we should have done. I think I did Victorian or Elizabethan, all those stuff that I absolutely no use to me. I can't remember any of it. So we didn't study that either, which I think we should have done. I think it should be vital in order to stop the rise of fascism, that we all understand what happened in World War I and II. But there you go. Khalid is in Leicester. Good morning, Khalid.
Morning, Petrie. You okay?
I'm very well. How are you? I haven't spoken to you for a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Have you been busy? Just listening?
Yeah. No, I've been busy and there's so much happening, but...
are you proud to be British?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that, look, I mean, all these years, I was born here, bred here, brought up here, went through the system here. Anybody said anything many years ago, especially when I was a lot younger, up to my 80s, towards the early 90s, anybody said anything about England, I'd be like, you know, I'd be defending them to the max, to the hilt. No matter what happened, nobody could say anything about England. Everybody knew that, you know. I was very extremely patriotic. But after the invasion of Afghanistan, of Iraq, and then now, you know, what's happening in Gaza, you know, that is, you know, actually stomach churning, and that is completely torn my inside to pieces. In the sense that, look, I mean, the general public, I think everybody, I'm nothing against the general public, but the people in power, they have a lot to answer for, you know, in the sense that, you know, when you supposedly are the flag bearers of humanity and, you know, upholding human rights, and then you go against that very same thing which I thought England was. You know, I really thought that England had that, you know, soft spot and would really genuinely care for the innocents. And then to have that turned upside down and ripped to shreds, that is, you know, completely, you know, broken me down internally, in the sense that, that's broken me down, in the sense taking up my belief for England. You know, this is what we were, you know, this is what we really stood up for. But especially now, what's happening, as we speak, we are still supporting the mass killing that is taking place in the West Bank and in Gaza. You know, it continues. I can't accept that, you know, this is what England is about. You know,
is there a country that you would be more proud to be?
When you say no, I mean, look, England has its benefits. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, you know, England is a problem. I'm saying that the people in power, you know, when people have an agenda, they utilize that power to fulfill that agenda. That's where the problem lies. It's not about the general public. The public out there, I mean, look, I've got friends from all backgrounds, all races, all religions. You know, we all, I mean, in my street, people from, you know, we probably got one of the most multicultural streets probably around. If everybody from all walks of life, and we all get on like a house on fire, we leave our keys with each other when we go away, or we go away for a while. So, you know, the unity is there on the ground. But it's just the people in power, you know, that when they abuse that power to fulfill an agenda.
What do you think? What do you think of Donald Trump's plans for Gaza?
I think, you know, behind him, I don't think it's just Donald Trump behind him. Look,
it's Project 2025 as well, isn't it? All of them.
Yeah, all the people behind him. Look, there's no, everybody in his, who is backing him. They're all who's, bankrolled him, as it were. They're all openly declaring to be Zionists, and they say, well, basically.
Well, I think it's worse than that, actually. If you take the Israelis out of which you can't, I know, but I think that it's just ethnic cleansing. I mean, there's no other word for it in my view.
No,
and chuck people out of the holy. This is the Holy Land. Chuck people out of the Holy Land and not let them come back or from their homes. I've never heard anything like it.
Put it this way, Petrie. Look, I'll be honest with you, right? I envy those who have passed away. You might think, why would you envy the people who have passed away in Palestine? Right? Because, you see, we have a belief, as a Muslim, we have a belief. The person who's been innocently, whose life has been taken away, they gain martyrdom. There's no two ways about it. I've seen people with my own eyes, smiling as they have passed away. Obviously, this is our belief, this is our faith. And the ones who have been hurt in any way, shape, or form innocently, all their sins, all the past has been forgiven. That's our belief. But having said that, from the outside, it is my duty to uphold what humanity is, no matter who the person is, regardless of race, religion, background. If somebody, for a small example, somebody gets run over on the road outside my house, am I going to look first at, is what religion are they? Or what color of skin do they? No, of course not. I'll run out, and I've done that before. Actually, it did happen. Actually, had to be somebody from completely different race, religion, etc. Anyway, so I would rush out and try and assist.
Of course, as I would. Yeah.
Yes. So therefore, we have to ask ourselves that question: are we inherently? Do we have that part of us within us, or that accepts the mass killing of innocents? I mean, that's what's happening in Israel. It's absolutely appalling. I can't. That's what I'm saying. That I can't accept. I mean, I told David Lammy, when he came on LBC just before becoming Foreign Secretary, I asked him, listen, give me 7 days. I'll have 100,000 people ready within 7 days. Believe me, I'll have 100,000 people ready to go over to Gaza and defend the innocent men, women, and children. So he said, "Oh, you want me to go there? You want me to get to go?" So why are you? So I asked him the question: then why are you allowing UK British citizens to go over there, sniping little children in the head and the torso? And it's been all documented, committing their war crimes, posting their war crimes online, and then coming back to a hero's welcome. He goes, he started stuttering. Then he said, maybe they've got a dual nationality. I said, that's preposterous. So if I got a Russian passport, I can go and fight with the Russians. Would you allow that? I said, that's a ridiculous argument. That's what I'm saying. This double standards and hypocrisy is absolutely appalling. This is where the problem lies, Petrie, in the sense that, look, like, for example, now, what do you think about, what's her name again, Shamima Begum, having her nationality, stripped? She didn't fight with it. As far as I'm aware, she didn't pick up a gun. But people, UK British citizens, are going to Gaza, going over there, joining the IDF, committing all sorts of things, and coming back to a hero's welcome. Look at the hypocrisy.
Who's giving them a hero's welcome?
That's all documented. I mean, I won't name names of people. This is all documented.
I've never seen anybody come back to. I've never even seen a British soldier come back from a British war to get a hero's welcome. They're normally treated like scum. But yeah, so, I mean, look, I can really understand you. I mean, I personally think the only kind of human being is a true human being has humanity for everybody. That's what I believe, and anybody who doesn't is not. It doesn't have humanity, right? Because you can't just choose to have humanity for one human and not to another. In my view, that prevents you from actually declaring yourself as having humanity.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
And I have no religion. I don't care. I'm not interested. But you have your religion. That is absolutely fine. Whatever. And we all just live together and we care about each other. And people call me a tree hugger for that. But fine, I'll die on that hill, right? I don't care. But it's sad that you have lost faith in Britain over the attitude that probably isn't pervasive in all of us, as you know yourself.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, look, I mean, I grew up here. I went through the system. I've got friends. I mean, we had actually a school reunion just a few months ago from people. Everyone from different religion, atheist, non-Muslim, etc. Right? We got on so well that we had to pull away from each other at 2:00 in the morning because even though we met about 8:00.
That's so cool.
We better start going home now, otherwise we'll be here all night. My point is, it's not about. It's not that racist element within us. I mean, I'm sure majority of people, like I said, no matter who gets run over, who gets hurt, we'll do our best to try and alleviate
I hope
pain.
so. I think so. Yeah.
Right. But I'm saying the people in power, we have to question their motives. When they take us to war, when they decide to do something, we have to. I mean, people in power, we put them there. We're employing them, you can say, by paying our taxes.
Yeah.
Right. So we should question their motives, question their actions, and question the laws that they are bringing into law. That what is this? Why is this? Is this genuine? I mean, like I said, maybe I was a bit naive in the 90s. I thought everybody in power, they tell the truth. We have to respect them. No matter what they do, they're the best. But then Afghanistan happened, Iraq happened. Now Gaza, what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank is happening. It's been happening for a while. But
well, they ignored the million-strong march as well, didn't they? That nobody wanted that to happen. Well, Khalid, I think you sound brilliant. You sound like somebody who's just been punched in the stomach by what you're seeing around the world. And trust me, you're not alone in that. All right, so don't think that you are. Khalid there in Leicester, give me a call. Are you proud to be British? And if not, why have you lost that pride? What has done it for you? 03444 99 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
Hi, good morning. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you, talking about why it is that it seems Generation Z are not proud to be British. In fact, they will lie when they go overseas and say they're from anywhere else, although I don't know where else they could say they're from. But anyway, I just find it interesting as to if you are no longer proud of Britain, why are you no longer proud of Britain? And Khalid had a really good argument. They used to be staunchly proud of Britain and then not proud because of foreign policy, right? And that's his right to feel like that. At least it's an intelligent argument, right? At least it's a reasoned, heartfelt view. So if you're no longer proud of Britain, why are you no longer proud of Britain? I mean, I think I'm proud of Britain. What I'm not so pleased with is that we've let young people down. We've stripped them of their hope of a proper life, really, without the ability to buy or to rent cheaply, and I think that that's really unfair. And I understand why Gen Z are quite rightly hacked off with the social contract breaking down. I don't know what the answer to that is. It certainly isn't what's going on at the moment, and I can't see any clear way to that ever happening, because there's too much greed in this country. And I say that all the time. The problem in this country isn't the unemployed or the old or the migrants or anything. It's not. It really isn't. That's a drop in the ocean compared to the greed and the profits that are allowed to happen in this country. And I'm a fan of capitalism. I think it's brilliant. But when you see banks turning in hundreds of millions of profit, you see supermarkets collectively hundreds of millions of pounds of profit, water companies, electricity, gas companies, hundreds of millions of pounds, sometimes up to £1 billion in profit, all out of your pocket. That's where their profit comes from, is out of your pocket. It's all the profits that they make stealing it from you. That's what the problem is in this country, because they're not paying the right amount of tax. I mean, do you know how billionaires keep their money? They buy stock in their companies, right? They buy, let's say, £1 billion worth of stock in their companies, and then they want to spend £1 billion, and they go, God, if I take £1 billion out of, I have to pay tax on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow against my stock, and that loan against their stock, which is cash in their banks, is tax-free. So they spend that. Then if the stock goes up or down, it's fine, you just borrow more against it, or the stock market takes a loss. You lose in your stock. But the point is that you never lose as much as you've saved in borrowing against that stock to spend that money. And that's how they get away with it. That's that lovely little loophole for them. So they're not paying the right amount of tax. And that may sound like I'm a socialist. I'm really not. I just think it should be fair. It should just be fair. And all those hundreds of millions, billions of pounds worth of profit that all of these companies take is out of your pocket. That's the real problem at the moment. And that's why I'm not proud of this country. That. Grace is from London. Hello, Grace.
Hi.
How are you? Welcome to the programme. You're a new caller.
Yeah, hi. It's good to talk to you. We might have spoken on BBC Radio London a million years ago, but I'm not sure.
I love it if we did.
I think I don't personally feel proud to be British, because it doesn't feel that where one is born is an achievement. I think that there are many things about Britain that make me grateful to be British. I think that we're really privileged to be living in a country that has many things about it that are fantastic, although like other people my age, I'm obviously never going to be able to afford a home or anything like that, but still our standards of living are far better than most people in the world, and so we really need to be appreciative of that and recognise that we're really fortunate to be here. And there are many things in British history that have been really positive, various things that some scientists have done and such like, but there are also things in our history that are really, really horrific, which have contributed to some extent to the fact that our country is much richer than other people's countries. So I think on the one hand, you can't say I'm really, really proud of what Britain has done and not consider the really barbaric things that have happened.
No, we have to consider them. We have to remember them, because it's the only way we can stop doing them again.
Indeed. And it seems often that some people on one side of the political spectrum want to only think about all of the negative things, and people on the other side want to only think about all of the positive things. And either way, our emotions aren't really what's relevant. What's relevant is the history and how we can make things better right now. And right now, there's real injustice in our world. And your last caller was talking about various conflicts. I'm personally most frustrated about this country because I feel that there's a disregard for the world's very poorest people. For instance, I mean, a lot of discussion about Gaza, and that's important because the situation there is horrific, but hardly any discussion about other situations in our world where people are suffering immensely, such as that in Sudan and parts of the Congo now. And most of these things are just continually ignored. So if there's something that frustrates me about this country, it's that we don't really think much about those situations all that often. But I think things have declined in this country for a number of reasons, such as, when I say declined, I mean obviously services are more stretched and the housing market is more difficult than they were a few decades ago. And I think that what we're seeing is, on the one side, you've got some people wrongly presuming that that's because of migration and diversity, and as you've just so astutely explained, that's not the reason. But some people are arguing that diversity and migration is the reason things are getting worse. And in doing so, they are demonstrating racism, which is leading to younger people thinking the country is racist. So it's this kind of vicious circle almost.
But I don't even think it's the fault of people who think that way. I think that people are encouraged to think that way. There's always othering. There's always been othering. And the whole thing at the moment is, if we're blaming legal migration or illegal migration or people on disability benefits, that's the next one that the government is going after. People who are not working or they're all skiving. Now, look, of course there are skivers, of course there are fakers, but they're not. It's not significant enough number. In fact, there's more money not claimed by people who should be claiming than is ever taken out of the system by fraud, but nobody talks about that either. But if we're looking over there, or we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're not together, we're no threat to government, and that we're not looking at what they're doing. It's a distraction technique, and it's been used brilliantly in this country for decades.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I also think that one of the things that has made our country good in some ways, and historians like Tom Holland have looked at this, is that we did have a ethic of Christianity to some extent. And obviously everyone's always believed all sorts of different things, and people of all sorts of beliefs can behave in all sorts of ways. But prior to Christianity coming to the country, it was quite often thought that might is right, and it was fairly normal for people to take advantage of others, and that wasn't necessarily considered always to be morally wrong. But then this new ethic came in, and that has influenced lots of people. Even though lots of people have not even been Christian, it has impacted what we have considered to be morally right and wrong. But now we're kind of losing that, and I think that, again, the majority of people who are not believers still behave brilliantly, but I think that the fact that our society has recently, in the last generation or two, changed to become so secular means that children are now growing up, rather than hearing you should aim to put others first, you should aim to be honest, you should aim to love your neighbour. Instead, now children are growing up hearing, contrary to how their grandparents or parents might have been raised, they're growing up now surrounded by messaging saying you should get what you want. You deserve to have what you want. And they're surrounded by advertising all the time. And I think that's part of the reason we're seeing one part of the reason we're seeing some things decline, such as increasing crime and shoplifting. Because I think that we had in this country something that was positive, and that has disappeared. I don't think it's migration that's leading to more shoplifting, contrary to what I heard someone say the other day. I think that our whole worldview is changing a little bit, and I think that's
I actually agree with that. I mean, I don't have religion. I really no, but it doesn't stop me from living by a set of moral codes, right? To be a decent human being, and I hope I am. I try to be every day. But I think you're right. I like the way you phrased that, you termed that, because maybe there's nothing that has replaced that Christianity. I went to a C of E school, so I probably heard that in primary school. And I know we used to do the Lord's Prayer every day and all of those things. But maybe, there's been nothing, I don't agree with it being religiously taught, but I do agree with what is taught. And maybe we need to find another way of teaching that, love for your neighbour, support of humanity, we're all in it together kind of thing, in another form, because I'm not sure if it has been replaced.
I don't know the best way to do that. I think ultimately that it does help. I think that a lot of people who, again, most people who are of no belief at all still behave brilliantly. But I do think that believing that human beings have been made by God can be a motivating factor in treating them well. And so I'm not sure now we're losing this ethic that has been kind of just normalised for everyone of all beliefs. I'm not sure that now we're losing this ethic, quite how to get it back. But we shall see. But as you so rightly said, I don't think that the problem is migration or benefits grounded or anything like that. I think too often people are overlooking the numerical realities that the wealth is being less and less equally dispersed.
Yeah.
And that needs to be talked about more, but it's too easy for politicians to point the fingers at certain groups.
Exactly, because absolutely, you look at what's happening in America at the moment, it's so divided that there's no chance of them getting together to defend themselves against what might be happening from the president, because they're too busy arguing amongst themselves, and that is a political strategy. It's always been a strategy. If you keep us arguing to each other and pointing at people and going, oh, should you be in that parking spot? Have you got a disabled badge? You know, all of that. Then we're not looking, we're not paying attention, and we're not strong enough as separate individuals. And that's the other thing, the encouragement of us being so insular and separate, I want this, I want it now, prevents us from getting together and seeing each other as equals.
Yeah, and it's obviously been exacerbated by social media and people being in silos and bubbles and echo chambers as a result of that. I try online to follow as many different news outlets as possible across the political spectrum so that I can see different points of view, but I think that some people don't do that, and they've become consequently liable to only hear things that they already agree with.
Oh, the echo chamber is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal, because I'm not to the right. I'm very centrist, actually, but because I'm not to the right of politics, you know, get all the right-wingers going, what are you saying? And they're the ones who scream about free speech, and yet they don't want to hear the opposing view.
Yeah.
Just that there isn't an opposing view. If I'm not saying what they want me to say, they don't want me to say anything. And that is incredibly frustrating, because you think, well, I thought you believed in free speech. They don't, of course. Grace, wonderful call. Will you call again?
Yeah, I hope so.
Good. I hope so too. Great to talk to you, Grace. Again, another very good set of arguments that there is much to be proud of, but we also at the same time need to assess who we really are. Right, I've got to take a break, but I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello. Good morning to you. It's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. And we're talking about Britain. Are you proud to be British is the question that I'm asking. And if you're not proud to be British, then why aren't you proud to be British? What is going on that you are not proud to be British? And can you point to another country that you would be proud to be a part of? And I don't know if I do. I mean, I really love. I love the Canadian people. I'm just slightly obsessed with them at the moment, and because they're so nice, polite, lovely. I mean, I'm sure there are some scumbags there as well. I mean, I'm not naive, but I think if there was one country, I'd probably go. Not right now, being too close to America, but that's probably one country I would go and live in. I think. But I don't know. Are you proud to be British? It's quite a simple question, but it's almost a more complicated answer, because maybe you used to be proud of it. Maybe you would be proud of it if. What would change your mind? What would make you more proud to be British? And why has that gone? You know, our grandparents would have been proud to be British. And while we are grateful, as Grace was saying, actually, she has a lot to be thankful for being British. And I mean, imagine being an Afghani woman right now, and almost at any point in history. I'm very grateful to be British, but am I proud? All right. That's a different question. So let me go to your calls now. And I think Chris was first. Is that right, Chris? Yeah, Chris in Epsom. Hello, Chris. Good morning.
Good evening, Petrie.
Well, good morning now.
Well, yes, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Chris, what is it about Gen Z, do you think, that they're not proud to be British?
Well, let's start off on another foot. I'm an ex-vet. I left the Special Forces in 1985.
Right.
So I wore the uniform, I took the Queen's shilling, and I went to war. I was proud to be British. That was back in the day when you couldn't wear the uniform.
Outside of barracks, yeah.
Outside of barracks because of the Irish problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I was asked in my older years to put on a uniform to defend this country, or had a son or daughter that was asked to defend this country, I would say no.
Okay.
Now, that's a real biggie.
That is, yeah, from an ex-military man.
And I still fly the flag outside my house. I've got a 30-foot flagpole outside the front of my house that I fly the Union Jack on. Occasionally, I change it to the flag of St. George, and at Easter and Christmas, I change it to the relatives' time. But I would not fight for this country as it is at the moment.
Why?
I think it's lost its way. It's lost its way through the loss of morals, the lack of education in our schools, the belief that everything that was British, the empire, was entirely bad and terrible and horrible. Everything that we believed in our time has been turned against us. And Generation Z are quite right that getting on the ladder of home ownership.
It's impossible.
Is more difficult. I mean, it was difficult. I remember as a child in the 60s, remembering my mother and father saving money in different glass jars for their rent, their power, and for savings to be able to buy their first property, which they did in 1971. Now, it's difficult now, but it's more difficult, and there's no hope. You know, when you've got when you look at over 50% of council, what was called council properties, being given to immigrants instead of people whose generational families have been paying into the system.
But again, I'm going to say this because just to balance that a bit, it's not the fault of those immigrants that have been given those houses. It's the fault of the councils and the country for not building. They sold off a load of council houses that were never ever replaced. That's why there's a shortage. Now, it's easy to see other people going into these houses and thinking they're the reason I don't have a council house. They are the reason that I can't get on the housing ladder. They are the reason that there's a shortage. They're not. That is deliberately done to make you think it's their fault. In fact, it's every government in the last 60 years failing to build and replace the council houses that were flogged off under Margaret Thatcher or even before. Right? Well, so it's the governments have constantly and consistently let us down. They have not put into infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. Petrie, I don't disagree with that at all. It's consecutive governments.
Completely.
It started with Blair, and it's continued on from there.
They don't care about us. The sooner we realise that, the more we can band together. We can beat it when we all realise that it's their fault, not disabled people, not old people getting heating allowance, not, Gen boomers or whatever having houses. It's not any of their fault. It's Petrie, the government's fault.
Listen, I have no disagreement with that whatsoever. I'm one of the 9 million that are of working age that are not employed. You know why? Because I stay at home to look after my mum who's bedbound with Parkinson's and dementia.
And thank goodness you do, because if you didn't, she'd be costing us a fortune, right?
Yes. Oh yes, but they've just stopped the
No, they don't. But then nobody draws that line. They go, you're shirking. It's like, of course he's not shirking. He's doing a job nobody would choose to do, and he's doing it for no money or little money.
I was doing it for £540 a month, but actually they've just stopped £260 a month of that because I wouldn't give them access to my bank account, but that's another story.
Oh my God. But you see, this is it, and people will point at you and say, it's your fault. It's not. That's because the care system has not been funded properly for decades. That's because money hasn't been put into what would help your mum live a decent, happy life with you being able to help her, but she would be better looked after. That's why you're not working. But people don't see that. And that's what frustrates me about this country, is everybody's too busy blaming each other.
People. That's the whole idea of it.
It is.
The thing is that people don't understand also. If I just quickly explain, social care, all right?
Oh, don't.
When you've got to understand that something between 15 and 20% of beds taken in the hospital are from what's called bed blockers. Now, they can't go home because there's no care for them, social care. Now, that sounds like, there's nobody to make a cup of tea for them. Or
no, it's not that.
Now, do you realise, right? In the care for my family, and I'm the last in my line of my family. I lost many of my family in World War II, and I'm the last of my family now existing. Social care, all right? When you look at what covered, or what is social care? My mother is bedbound. She's doubly incontinent. She has dementia. She has osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and stage 3 kidney disease. She doesn't know whether it's day or night. She doesn't know whether it's morning or evening. She doesn't know where she is. She can't absolutely look after herself. But that's social care.
Yeah.
That's not NHS continuous care. That's
social care. But trust me, Chris, I have experience of this with a member of my family as well. It's absolutely disgraceful. He bed blocked for 3 months because there was nowhere for him to go because he was too young to have dementia, although he had dementia. Anyway, Chris, great call. Another great call. Thank you very much indeed. I've got to take a break, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. It's Petrie here until 1 o'clock. It gives us about 10 minutes, just short of 10 minutes. I just want to read this out. I'm not proud to be British. I have cerebral palsy, a business management degree and a master's degree. The draconian, insulting social care charging rules mean that a disabled person who, like myself, needs social care, we have income tax twice and bank balance taxed. We even have to explain what we spend our money on. If we don't pay for a few weeks, all care stops, even if that means death. At the same time, drunks rock up to A&E, get treated and sent on their way repeatedly. They don't have to present their bank statements and disclose their income. Australia is a younger country and seems to be free of the old boys network that keeps us all down. I desperately want to emigrate to Australia, but I respect that I do not meet their entrance requirements. So that's from Sarah near Plymouth. And Jack says, honestly, I find it tough to be really proud of being British. Sure, I value a lot of our diverse culture and the important milestones we've hit as a country, but there are some serious social and political issues that often overshadow these positives. This makes it hard for me to fully embrace that pride. I think it's really important to look at both what we've done well and the areas where we still need to improve. That way we can get a clearer understanding of what being British means in today's world. Very eloquently put, as usual. Jack, thank you. Kevin is in Basingstoke. Morning, Kevin.
Morning.
So, are you proud to be British?
Well, I'm not really, because we've been deliberately divided by the far right in this country, so that we argue amongst ourselves about asylum seekers or immigration or people on benefits. So we don't look at the real problems in this country, which is massive inequality. The wealth gap in this country has never been bigger or grown at a faster rate.
I completely agree, and I don't think it's the far right that's dividing us. I think it's all the government. The governments don't want to take responsibility, so what they do is they keep us divided. I think it's the same with the Tories, and it's the same with Labour. If we're looking at each other and blaming each other, we're not blaming them. So I'm not sure. I agree with everything you've said. I just don't think it's a far right issue necessarily.
Well, it is really because the far right are pushing the Conservatives further to the right. That's why we've seen the Labour Party deporting these immigrants to compete with Reform UK.
They're both. Labour's doing the same thing, and you don't win elections by all three parties being Reform. Right, I mean, well, one of them will win, but then that deprives us of choice. I think there is a problem with right. Well, clearly is around the world with right-leaning parties now, but I do think it comes from the left as well. I think they like us divided.
Well, in what way?
Well, in the way that all of these decisions that Keir Starmer is making, they're going to go after the disabled people on benefits now because some of them are faking it. So they're going to reduce benefits to all because that's easier than doing some of the hard work, like taxing these multiple billion-pound profit-making companies in this country that completely are constantly fleecing money out of your pocket. They don't want to do that because that's too difficult. So what they'll do is they'll kick downwards.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, the Labour Party won't go after the wealthies because the wealthy own the media and they donate hundreds of millions to political parties.
Yeah, well, they don't own me. So when you say the media, what do you mean? Nobody puts words into my mouth.
No, I don't mean that. But what I mean, I think there's 7 offshore billionaires that own 70% of the media in this country.
Yeah, well, it's the same in America. You're right about that. There is a huge percentage of press and media owned in a very small handful of pockets. And you are right. But I do think it's the problem of the right and the left that likes to kick downwards because it's too difficult to reach upwards for them.
Well, Elon Musk, I mean, he donated hundreds of millions to the
Donald
Republican
Trump.
Party.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's supposedly going to be doing the same thing to Reform UK. So
yeah, there's a technical hitch there in that this country doesn't welcome foreign involvement into. He doesn't own a company in the UK, and he could only do it if he owned a company. Now, he could buy 20, I suppose, tomorrow. But there are rules, and he can't just give Reform that money. But yeah, if he could, then that
could do it through Twitter.
It's not based in the UK. So he has to own a company in the.
We're in discussion with him then. If he can't do it.
Well, they can discuss what they like, can't they? I mean, I can discuss getting a massive pay rise. Doesn't mean I'm going to get one. Because they're just saying it, right? Because they want other investors. Because Reform is a business. It's not a political. It's a political party, but it's also a limited company. Unusually.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you're not a member. You're a subscriber.
Exactly.
You can't oust Nigel Farage.
No.
You like if you're a member of the Labour Party or the Tory Party, you've got a say in who their leader is. But
exactly
he can stay there for as long as he wants.
Exactly that. So they're looking for other investors, and the way to get investors is to say that somebody's going to give you £100 million, right? And then other investors come into the company. That's kind of the way I see it. Anyway.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, also, I mean, we're divided. You know, there's 4 million children living in poverty in this country, and then we're surprised that young people wouldn't fight for this country. I mean, why would you fight for a country when you've grown up in poverty and you
without a home?
Enough to go to university, you come out with
Huge debt, no chance of getting a home. This is it. This is the whole point, Kevin, and I agree with you on that. I think we actually, in principle, totally agree with what is wrong and what is going wrong. We're just slightly divided on whose fault it is. Great call, really good calls this morning, actually. I just want to quickly squeeze Jason in. We may only have a minute, Jason, but I did want to get you in. Jason in Walsall, how are you this morning?
How you doing, Petrie? All right?
Are you driving again?
Yeah, I'm always driving.
You're always working, the hardest working man in the country you are.
You've got to slog along just to pay the bills.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. So, you're proud to be British?
Yeah, I might just to be a quick one. I'm proud to be British, yeah. I think also lucky to be British as well, you know what I mean? Like the lifestyle we've got. Because we have got a good lifestyle. If you want to achieve, you know, if you want to achieve things, you can in this country. But like, I wish we was more like Japan as well.
Really?
Hello?
In what way? Oh, I'm never going to know. Am I ever going to find out? Dun dun dun. No. Oh, I've never been to Japan. I have been told that Japan is the most